PrabhupadaBooks.com with the original Krishna book. This chapter and the two chapters before are not online. There's three chapters, as far as I know, that are not. All chapters before that are there, and all chapters after that are there.
Prabhupada books.
That's why I've been running into. That's why I've been late the last two times. I'm sorry. So I've been frantically trying to.
I have a humble suggestion.
Yeah.
I suggest that anyone who participates have a book.
Right.
Have a Krishna book. And they can read it. It has to be the original copy. Because we saw that already. I was reading from the original copy, and what you were thinking was
the words were different.
The words are different.
Yeah.
But I don't want to even get into it because there's so many words different. The ones that didn't matter. So what I humbly suggest is that for these rooms, everybody be encouraged to bring the book and read from the book.
Great idea. I'm all for that.
And once you start encouraging that, like, it makes a big difference, because this way we know we have the original books. We're not going to get complicated with changes.
Yeah. Okay, I've got my copy there. Ready to go.
Me too.
And let's see, here is the Krishna book song. So I'll just sing through it once by myself, because unless you're muted, if you sing back, it's going to be 10 different people singing at different times, and it's going to sound like a big mess. Unfortunately, that's the way the technology works. So I'll just go into it. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, 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 hey. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Rakshamam. Krishna, 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 Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Pahimam. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava. Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava. Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. O Lord Krishna, please protect us and maintain us. O Lord Rama, descendant of King Raghu, please protect me. O Krishna, O Keshava, killer of the Keshi demon, please maintain me.
Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu vibrated that himself when he traveled to South India.
Yes.
He's for his protection, and he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's praying for protection. So I think in this line, we should understand that that's equally important to Narayana, the prayers that we sing to Nrsimhadev, because this is much easier. It's all Krishna, Krishna many, many times. And Lord Chaitanya set that example for us. So sometimes I hear devotees like they go to Narayana Kavacha prayers, and they go through hours of chanting and mudras and all this stuff. But actually, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself chanted this for his protection, traveling alone in South India.
Mm-hmm. Vasant Prabhu, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I don't know if you'll remember Vasant Prabhu, Rupanuga Prabhu. Vasant, you knew Rupanuga from Miami, is that correct?
That is correct. I met Rupanuga Prabhu in Miami only 50 years ago.
Wow.
I was 32.
I was 26 years old then. I'm 76 years old now. And Rupanuga, he was just a pup. He was only 32.
Right.
And so he was GBC of Miami at that time. Is that correct?
That is correct. And I wish he was for a few years after that, because Miami went through some transformations, not all of them favorable. I'll just leave it there.
I believe the history is that we had a beautiful property. We were growing a lot of food. It was across the street from a community center, and then one other spiritual authority decided, let's buy a 300-year-old
Year
hotel
old,
without any plumbing working.
correct.
That,
Bad
ho-
move.
that hotel was right. That hotel was right on the beach, and the devotees put in a restaurant, first class restaurant, and it needed some work. But it's not that the money or devotees weren't there to collect money. It was the ideal location, and the building was not in that bad a shape. I was there a number of times, and we had a couple of GBC meetings there, and it was sold. The building was sold. It was one of the best properties in the movement. You walk out the front door.
Are you saying which property one the hotel was, or the one that before that?
I'm talking about the one that was right on the beach.
On Collins Avenue. Mhm.
Huh?
On
Avenue?
Collins Avenue, I lived there. I actually was married there, and in the BBT with Jai Jagadish. When Hridananda was the head honcho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was right on the beach. Remember, you walk
Yeah,
right
yeah.
out.
You could see the ocean right there from the temple room. You could even see the sharks swarming in the temple room windows.
And they had a very nice restaurant. Very, very nice restaurant.
Yeah, I was there in 1983.
I took my parents there, and they were very impressed.
Yeah, Jaya Jagadish's parents came there. Yeah.
This
And it
is
was sold. It was sold, and the money is still unaccounted for, as far as I'm concerned. They purchased some land, farmland that was wetland. It was useless, and and that they sold the whole thing. I was a GBC, but I couldn't stop it. Had nothing to do with it because it was Guru.
Mhm.
Zonalacharya days.
What?
The
Yeah.
Zonalacharya days?
Yes.
Mm.
Uh-huh.
I just wonder in retrospect if it wasn't possible to take a note against the farm and use that to acquire the new property. I mean, that farm was producing an acre of marigolds that were being sold all over the country. Anyway, hindsight's always at least 2020.
Yeah.
Devotees didn't sort of appear to know real estate terribly well. They made mistakes all over the place.
Yeah.
Sadly. Can I ask, just going back, which volume of the Krishna book are we reading tonight?
This one here, volume 2.
Volume 2,
Okay.
page 81. Page 81.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The Deliverance of Pondraka and the King of Kashi. If you'd like to begin, Rupanuga Prabhu, the story of King Paundraka,
All right.
the god of the fool.
Hmm?
He's sometimes referred to as the god of the fools.
Oh, yes. The story of King Pondraka is very interesting because there have been many rascals and fools who have considered themselves to be God, even in the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. There was such a foolish person. His name was Pondraka, and he wanted to declare himself to be God. While Lord Balaram was absent in Vrindavan, the king of Pondraka, the king of the Karusha province, being foolish and puffed up, sent a messenger to Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna is accepted as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and King Pondraka directly challenged Krishna through the messenger, who stated that Pondraka and not Krishna was Vasudeva. In the present day, there are many foolish followers of such rascals. Similarly, in his day, many foolish men accepted Paundraka as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because he could not estimate his own position, Paundraka falsely thought himself to be Lord Vasudeva. Thus the messenger declared to Krishna that out of his causeless mercy, King Pondraka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, had descended on the earth just to deliver all distressed persons.
I have a question. So to the best of my knowledge, Lord Krishna is in Dwarka at this time, and it says that a messenger came to visit the Lord. So, as far as I know, that Dwarka was the one that was, I don't know how many miles it was off the coast of India proper, but Krishna had, I believe it was 90 square miles or something, the fortress of Dwarka. So I'm just curious to know how a messenger comes so easily to the fortress of Dwarka when I don't know how many miles off the coast of India it was. It's a technical question.
Well, they might have had a magic carpet. I mean, those days they had
Right.
so many things. They had magic carpets. They had witches traveling on tree branches, and they still do. They still do in South India. So speed was a little different.
Vasant Prabhu, would you like to read the next paragraph?
I will. I need to grab the actual book. So
Okay.
go to the next party, and I'll be right back.
Oh yeah, we'd hate for you to miss the paragraph though. I don't know what to do. Yeah.
Stand by. So it's page 81.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Stand by one moment. Volume 2, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
correct.
I
I
have the original, of course. Stand by.
yeah. While we're waiting for you, I'll make a comment.
Okay, Chai.
Yeah, I looked at. I hope that Rupanuga Prabhu will not chastise me for this, but I went into the Sarartha Darshini, which is the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur on this verse. This is translated by our godbrother Banu Swami, and it describes that Paundraka thought himself to be the original Vasudeva or God because of his followers, the people in his kingdom, puffed him up and caused him to think that he was the supreme. And I was thinking, wow, that's a disservice that people can do towards someone in their community, is to puff them up and cause them, because pride precedes a fall. That's just an aside, but I just found it interesting that one of the causes of Pondraka's being puffed up is that his own citizens caused him to think himself to be on the same level as Krishna. I guess you could say the same thing about any of our godbrothers. If we treat them as if they're on the same level as Prabhupada, we're not doing them a favor, are we?
No, we're giving them poison.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm ready.
Thank you. Did you want to finish your statement, Rupanuga, or was that enough?
That's plenty.
Okay.
So, second paragraph on 81, correct? Surrounded by many other foolish persons, this rascal Pondraka had actually concluded that he was Vasudeva, the supreme personality of Godhead. This kind of conclusion is certainly childish. When children are playing, they sometimes create a king amongst themselves, and the child who is so selected thinks he's king. Similarly, many foolish persons, due to ignorance, select another fool as God, and then the rascal considers himself God, as if God could be created by childish play or by the votes of men. Under this false impression, thinking himself to be the Supreme Lord, Pondraka sent his messenger to Dwarka to challenge the position of Krishna. The messenger reached the royal assembly of Krishna in Dwarka and conveyed the message given by his master Pondraka. The message contained the following statements.
Is it the next paragraph?
Yeah, so we're up to top of page 82 now.
Yeah, so it's Rupa Vilas Prabhu.
I have no book. I looked through all my cases and packed them all. I have no Krishna book that I can find.
No.
No.
Okay, I'm sorry to not provide. I mean, I've got the original. I've got a version of it, but it's going to be edited. So, All right then. So Nanda Patni,
Okay, am I on? Yeah.
I am the only Supreme Personality.
Yeah, I am the only Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. There is no man who can compete with me. I have descended as King Pondraka, taking compassion on the distressed conditioned souls out of my unlimited causeless mercy. You have falsely taken the position of Vasudeva without authority, but you should not propagate this false idea. You must give up your position. O descendant of the Yadu dynasty, please give up all symbols of Vasudeva, which you have falsely assumed. And after giving up this position, come and surrender unto me. If out of your gross impudence you do not care for my words, then I challenge you to fight. I'm inviting you to a battle in which the decision will be settled.
Pondraka sounds like he is suffering from mental illness.
Insanity.
It's about to be cured too.
When all the members of the royal assembly, included King Ugrasen, heard this message sent by Paundraka, they laughed very loudly for a considerable time. After enjoying the loud laughter of all the members of the assembly, Krishna replied to the messenger as follows: O messenger of Paundraka, you may carry my message to your master. He is a foolish rascal. I directly call him a rascal, and I refuse to follow his instructions. I shall never give up the symbols of Vasudeva, especially my disc. Actually, he does give it up just momentarily to do the job, to do the deed. I shall use this disc to kill not only King Pondraka, but all his followers also. I shall destroy this Pondraka and his foolish associates, who merely constitute a society of cheaters and cheated. When this action is taken, foolish king, you will have to conceal your face in disgrace. And when your head is severed from your body by my disc, it will be surrounded by meat-eating birds like vultures, hawks, and eagles. At that time, instead of becoming my shelter, as you have demanded, you will be subjected to the mercy of these low-born birds. At that time, your body will be thrown to the dogs, who will eat it with great pleasure. Now, this sounds like the God of the Christians and the Abrahamic gods, doesn't it? I mean, and this is what sometimes I'm not criticizing Krishna here, but I'm just thinking about their mindset of how, some people turn away from God because they hear about his very scary feature that he's a vindictive God, he's a jealous God, he's an angry God. And Krishna is certainly showing, well, Krishna's not showing vindication because he's absolute, but I'm just for the sake of comment, I'm thinking, wow, Krishna sounds really tough here.
Well, he's calling them out, for what
Right.
it is.
Sure.
And Gaura, what chapter are you on? I've got an online version that says original.
Good.
What chapter?
Chapter 11.
11? Thank you.
That's in part 2.
Yeah, I got it. Paundraka.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. Yeah. Do you know what I mean, Rupanuga Prabhu? That aspect of, how in the Abrahamic religions, we don't hear about the loving side of God. We hear about him, sending people to hell forever.
Yes, especially in the Old Testament, there's a lot of punishment. He made it. Of course, Krishna, Srila Prabhupada said, actually, statistically, Krishna spent more time killing demons than protecting his devotees.
He was
Yeah.
discussing it a few months ago when there were lots of sort of heads and limbs flying everywhere and lots of blood and violence and all the rest of it.
Which pastime are you thinking of?
I can't remember. It was basically when
Jarasandha, I think, right? Jarasandha, the Jarasandha pastime.
Jarasandha, and then also sort of hurling the ass around and really thumping animals and all this kind of stuff. And we came to the conclusion that obviously this is Leela. This is transcendental bashing and head swiping and limb chopping.
He did it from his child. He did it from his babyhood.
Ah,
Correct.
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
mess with Krishna.
but Sant Prabhu, the
The
next
thing
paragraph.
is,
Oh,
the
go
thing
ahead.
is, the thing is,
Yes.
all the people who's going to be killed here are being killed by Krishna,
Mhm.
and that's a great blessing.
Yeah.
It's a great blessing. But Ramchandra killed all the family members. Yeah, and so it just all these persons were really blessed in that way because they were so foolish anyway. They were just going to go to hell.
Better to help them leave their bodies so that they would not commit more sin.
Yeah,
Or
and they
Jai
became,
and Vijay wanted the different incarnations to be killed by Krishna each time, right?
3 times, I think.
Yeah.
Rupanuga, you were saying?
that's a very interesting story. The Kumaras are often given all the credit, and Jai and Vijay, you see, they were in charge of the seventh gate, the last gate to get into Vaikuntha, and they were the best. They were the best. So the Kumaras came. The Kumaras were still partially impersonal because they didn't become personalists until Lord Krishna came, Lord Narayan came to the gate, and they smelled the lotus feet of the Lord with Tulsi Devi.
Mhm.
They were not full personalists before that, and that's why Jai and Vijay stopped them. They weren't qualified. They criticized him and Jai and Vijay said, "You are in the mode of passion. They're talking as if it was a material situation, but there's no passion or no modes of passion or ignorance or goodness in Vaikuntha. The Jai and Vijay were perfectly pure, and they were stopping him because they spotted that defect. You see, so that's the other side of the story. And then Krishna, he planned the whole thing anyway because he wanted to fight. So he took advantage. But actually, Jai and Vijay were actually acting according to their mission, to their assignment by the Supreme Lord. And the Kumaras still were not purified enough to get past that gate. Although they accused him and cursed him as if he was exhibiting some material qualities, which he wasn't doing. And some devotee made a mistake by saying, just see how close Maya is in the spiritual world. That's a misunderstanding. There's no Maya. There's nothing like that. So, but that was a misunderstanding. Actually, Jai and Vijay were not in Maya when they stopped. It was impossible. But the Supreme Lord wanted to use that as an incident to fight, and he wanted to fight with his own men.
Mhm.
Were the Kumaras let in? I can't remember now.
They became, I don't remember that, but they became the heads of a sampradaya, Vaishnava sampradaya,
Right. Mm-hmm.
after their purification.
Dwarka Sampradaya, I believe.
Yes, and yes, Srila Prabhupada specifically mentioned that the Dwarka followers do not accept Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a Supreme Personality of Godhead.
That's quite a. Go ahead, Vasant.
I said, that's interesting. I was unaware of that.
None of the sampradayas besides Gaudiya Sampradaya accept Lord Chaitanya as the Supreme Personality of God.
Mhm.
They treat him as a great prophet or great saintly person, great Vaishnava. But the reason he appeared in our line is because we worship Radha Krishna.
Cha.
And up until Madhavendra Puri, who was the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya's spiritual master, only Krishna was worshipped alone. And Srila Prabhupada said it was all mostly ritualistic with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. And then when Madhavendra Puri appeared, he introduced Mother Radharani into our line. And because that, he appeared because he's Radha Krishna. And he wanted to show Mother Radharani's side. Srila Prabhupada called it, his understanding of Mother Radharani's position was his self-realization.
Right.
So they don't worship Radha in the Ramanuja line?
I don't know,
Oh, okay.
but Radha Krishna is our
Mm.
specifically in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya.
I don't think in the Ramanuja line, because we have one godbrother who went to university with a Ramanujacharya professor. He said he wore tilak to school every day, and he taught about the four Vaishnava Sampradayas. And as a result of this godbrother said that he was actually more interested in the Ramanuja Sampradaya than Gaudiya Vaishnavism, which I found odd since his and our spiritual masters, Srila Prabhupada, he said, "Oh, I'm not into this Gopi Manjari stuff. You know, I prefer Ramanuja Sampradaya." And then I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah, you don't think that you can be a Vaishnava outside of Gaudiya Vaishnavism?" He became very intense towards me, and I said, no, you can also be. But I thought, why would you not want to follow Brahma Madhva Gaudiya?
I think the main emphasis is on Krishna Loka in our line. And the emphasis is also, you see, the Vaikunthas are huge, but Krishna Loka is bigger than all of them put together. So in our line, we worship, we're Goloka bound. We don't want to get off the Vaikuntha Express in Vaikuntha Loka. We want to go on to Krishna Loka.
I like how you said,
We want the last stop. We want the last stop. Because for me, to live in a place where I look exactly like the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a little too much tempting to fall down again. I'm really afraid of it. Because the only way that people distinguish themselves from the Supreme Lord is their white hair on his chest. Everybody else looks like Narayan, Lord Narayan, and his consort. Everybody.
All right.
To me, that's risky.
Yeah, risky business. Yes.
what were you saying, Nandapatni?
You might become a Paundraka.
Ouch.
That white hair is called the Srivatsa.
Srivatsa, correct.
Yes.
You want to be, what is it in the Bhagavatamrita where he steams right ahead to Golok in the end? He goes through all the spheres, the different spheres, but he realizes, nope, I want Goloka.
Srila Prabhupada said that those persons who are perfectly executing the regulative principles of devotional service will go to Vaikuntha.
Mm. I like how you used the term Galoka bound. It reminded me of Paul Simon's song Homeward Bound, but he should have called it Galoka bound. Galoka bound is homeward bound.
And we Srila Prabhupada always emphasized Krishna's family and all the gopis and gopas. I mean, Srila Prabhupada emphasized that so much, and our whole line is always emphasized. Certainly Lord Chaitanya did. Everyone's Vaishnava, but there's grades of devotees. Even some persons in Vaikuntha are still evolving higher. And sometimes when Marta Muni comes through Vaikuntha and persons hear about Krishna Loka, they want to go there.
Yes, Nikunjayuno Rati Keli Sidaye. Sing it every day. It's a very topmost realm.
We are so fortunate. It's like we should meditate on every day how fortunate we are to have Srila Prabhupada giving us all this knowledge. We have more knowledge than they have in Vaikuntha. See, because in Vaikuntha, that people are not aware of the pastimes of Krishna Loka. So we're very fortunate.
Isn't that the dynamic that the very dynamic of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is this extraordinary thing of the most fallen getting the most intimate, superior benediction. Right?
We're most
Krishna, Krishna. Well, we lucked out. We got a boatload of information that was simply not available in the West, and it was delivered to the West, and we caught that wave. And I've heard it said that if you learn even a single verse from your guru, qualified, or a single word or even a single letter, you have a debt that cannot be repaid. It's from Chanakya Pandit.
Nice. You were quoting Nikunja Yuno Rati Keli Siddhai. So that's in the Guru Vastakam. And one sannyasi godbrother was saying, that Sri Guru Vastakam is not the Prabhupada song. And he was bringing into question, Jaya Prabhupada. What the H is that?
Yeah. But look, listen, samsara prayers are written by pure devotees about pure devotees. And praise of pure. The samsara prayers are written by a pure devotee and praise of pure devotees.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Not conditioned souls.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, because he was saying this would give the Ritviks some edge if we say, oh no, it's only for Prabhupada, because he was saying, how do you know that their disciple isn't thinking of their spiritual master? But then I thought of this verse, Nikunja Yuno Rati. Which one of my godbrothers is in the gardens with the gopis helping them to serve Radha Krishna?
Yeah, they rationalize that away. But I mean, I in my humble opinion, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada who takes disciples should not allow that to be sung to him. It should be sung, he should join in that singing to Srila Prabhupada with everybody else, including his own disciples.
Mm-hmm.
Srila Prabhupada is the founder of Charya for a reason. No one, because a spiritual master can be a Majjhim Adhikari. In fact, he appointed 11 Majjhim Adhikaris. They were not Uttama Adhikaris, and they knew it. Everybody knew it.
Do they sing this prayer to Prabhupada's disciples?
I beg your pardon?
Do they sing the Gurvastakam to Prabhupada's disciples?
I have no idea.
Oh, neither do I.
Well, that was Jayaguru Swami's point. He was saying that some disciples, when they're attending Mangal Arati, they may be thinking of their Guru Maharaj while they're singing. So why are we singing Jaya Prabhupada when actually they could be singing to their Guru? But then I got the reflection later, but wait a minute, which one of our godbrothers is making tasteful arrangements with the gopis for Radha and Krishna's pastimes? So I'm thinking that's not really applicable to our godbrothers, is it?
Well, the disciples of the godbrothers should not be thinking that they're singing. They should be understanding who is qualified to receive that praise and that glorification. We're not sentimentalists. Everything we do has meaning. This is not a ritualistic society. So we have to sing with meaning and understand the object of our praise and glorification. Yeah? That samsara prayers will fit any of the sampradaya acharyas in our line. But it's a Tama Adhikari. It's a Tama Adhikari song.
Mm-hmm. It's
written by a Tama Adhikari.
Right.
For in praise of Uttama Adhikaris.
Mm-hmm. That gives clarity to it. I was going to say, Rupa Vilas Prabhu, if you could please put the link of the Krishna book that you have, because I'm not sure that Mata Gandhari, nor Prairie, nor Shoda Sindhu, who've all come and joined us a little bit later, I'm not sure that they have access to the original Krishna book, because I'm not able to put it on the screen for them.
Well, this is a downloaded PDF from PrabhupadaBooks.com. I don't know if it is original or not from this site. PrabhupadaBooks.com.
Yeah, that is original books. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a PDF file. You can download it. Once it's on your PC, you keep it. You can reference it anytime.
So that's all you have to do is go to PrabhupadaBooks.com.
Yes.
And we'll have it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's just to let you know, because we don't have a book to put on the screen tonight. And for 3 chapters, they're missing from the link I usually go.
I know.
to.
I went to that same link as you, and 9, 10, and 11 were missing.
Oh, you noticed? Okay.
I noticed. So then I found this site afterwards.
PrabhupadaBooks.com. Okay, great. So Vasant Prabhu, we're back to you again, and then
Thank you.
Rupa Vilas.
I just have a question. Would this be one of the? This is okay.
That's the big book.
That's the first volume.
Yeah.
Right.
We need 2, volume 2.
You want this one with Sri Nataji on the cover. Okay, Vasant Prabhu, do you remember where we left?
Okay, Radhe. So Continuing, the messenger carried the words of Lord Krishna to his master Paundraka, who patiently heard all of these insults. Without waiting longer, Lord Sri Krishna immediately started out on his chariot to punish the rascal Pondraka, because at that time, the king of Karusha was living with his friend, the king of Kashi. Krishna surrounded the whole city of Kashi.
That's a really short paragraph. You want to read the next one?
Yeah, I'll read the next. King Pondraka was a great warrior, and as soon as he heard of Krishna's attack, he came out of the city along with his 2 Akshahini divisions of soldiers. The king of Kashi was also a friend to King Pondraka, and he came out with 3 Akshahini divisions. When the 2 kings came before Lord Krishna to oppose him, Krishna saw Pondraka face to face for the first time. Krishna saw that the Pondraka had decorated himself with the symbols of the conch shell, disc, lotus, and club. He carried the Sharinga bow, and on his chest was the insignia of Srivatsa. His neck was decorated with a false Kaustuba jewel, and he wore a flower garland in exact imitation of Lord Vasudeva. He was dressed in yellow-colored silken garments, and the flag on his chariot carried the symbol of Garuda, exactly imitating Krishna's. He had a very valuable helmet on his head, and his earrings, like swordfish, glittered brilliantly. On the whole, however, his dress and makeup were clearly imitation. Anyone could understand that he was just like someone on stage playing the part of Vasudeva in false dress. When Lord Sri Krishna saw Pondraka imitating his posture and dress, he could not check his laughter, and thus he laughed with great satisfaction.
Rupa Vilas, Prabhu.
The soldiers on the side of King Paundraka began to shower their weapons upon Krishna. The weapons, including various kinds of tridents, clubs, poles, lances, swords, daggers, and arrows, came flying in waves, and Krishna counteracted them. He smashed not only the weapons, but also the soldiers and assistants of Paundraka. Just as during the dissolution of this universe, the fire of devastation burns everything to ashes. The elephants, chariots, horses, and infantry belonging to the opposite party were scattered by the weapons of Krishna. The whole battlefield became scattered with the bodies of animals and chariots. There were fallen horses, elephants, men, asses, and camels. Although the devastated battlefield appeared like the dancing place of Lord Shiva at the time of the dissolution of the world, the warriors who were on the side of Krishna were very much encouraged by seeing this, and they fought with greater strength.
Rupanuga, Prabhu.
At this time, Lord Krishna told Pondraka, Pondraka, you requested me to give up the symbols of Lord Vishnu, specifically my disc. Now I shall give it up to you. Be careful, you falsely declare yourself to be Vasudeva, imitating myself. Therefore, no one is a greater fool than you. From this statement of Krishna's, it is clear that any rascal who advertises himself as God is the greatest fool in human society. Krishna continued, now, Pondraka, I shall force you to give up this false representation. You wanted me to surrender unto you. Now this is your opportunity. We shall now fight. And if I'm defeated and you become victorious, I shall certainly surrender unto you. In this way, after chastising Paundraka very severely, he smashed his chariot to pieces by shooting an arrow. With the help of his disc, he separated the head of Paundraka from his body, just as Indra shaves off the peaks of mountains by striking them with his thunderbolts. Similarly, he also killed the king of Kashi with his arrows. Lord Krishna specifically arranged to throw the head of the king of Kashi into the city of Kashi itself, so that his relatives and family members could see it.
Wow.
This was done by Krishna just as a hurricane carries a lotus petal here and there. Lord Krishna killed Pondraka and his friend Kashiraj on the battlefield, and then he returned to his capital city, Dwarka.
Krishna is very dramatic.
He doesn't fool around.
Why do you think he purposely threw their heads into their? But where did he do it?
City. Into the middle of the city. Yeah, it's quite
Middle of
grand.
the city. Why? I'm wondering why Krishna did that.
Kind of makes a statement.
Yeah, just a tad. Don't mess around with me.
Correct.
Mandapatni, you're next.
When Lord Krishna returned to the city of Dwarka, all the siddhas from the heavenly planets were singing the glories of the Lord. As far as Pondraka was concerned, somehow or other, he was always thinking of Lord Vasudeva by falsely dressing himself in that way, and therefore Paundraka achieved Sarupya, one of the 5 kinds of liberation, and was thus promoted to the Vaikuntha planets, where the devotees have the same bodily features as Vishnu, with 4 hands holding the 4 symbols. Factually, his meditation was concentrated on the Vishnu form, but because he thought himself to be Lord Vishnu, it was offensive. After being killed by Krishna, however, that offense was also mitigated. Thus, he was given Sarupya liberation, and he attained the same form as the Lord.
Prairie.
When the head of the king of Kashi was thrown through the city gate, people gathered and were astonished to see that wonderful thing. When they found out that there were earrings on it, they could understand that it was someone's head. They conjectured as to whose head it might be. Some thought it was Krishna's head because Krishna was the enemy of Kashiraj, and they calculated that the king of Kashi might have thrown Krishna's head into the city so that the people might take pleasure that the enemy was killed. But it was finally detected that the head was not Krishna's, but that of Kashiraj himself. When it was so ascertained, the queens of the king of Kashi immediately approached and began to lament the death of their husband. "My dear Lord," they cried, "upon your death, we have become just like dead bodies."
Shuddha Sindhu, do you have a book? Or do you have it on your screen? Prabhupadbooks.com? No?
No, yeah.
Okay. Mata Gandhari, or do you have the link and the book open? No reply? Oh, okay. The king of Kashi had one son whose name was Sudakshina. After observing the ritualistic funeral ceremonies, he took a vow that since Krishna was the enemy of his father, he would kill Krishna and in this way liquidate his debts to his father. Therefore, accompanied by a learned priest qualified to help him, he began to worship Mahadev, Lord Shiva. The Lord of the kingdom of Kashi is Vishwanath, Lord Shiva. Has anybody here been to Kashi, or it's also known as Varanasi? Has anyone here gone there? No?
No, sadly.
Me neither. The temple of Lord Vishwanath is still existing in Varanasi, and many thousands of pilgrims, sometimes called Benares, right? So it seems to have 3 names, Kashi, Varanasi, and Benares. And many thousands of pilgrims still gather daily in that temple. By the worship of Sudakshina, Lord Shiva was very much pleased, and he wanted to give a benediction to his devotee. Sudakshina's purpose was to kill Krishna, and therefore he prayed for a specific power by which he could kill him. Lord Shiva advised that Sudakshina, assisted by the Brahmins, execute the ritualistic ceremony for killing one's enemy. This ceremony is also mentioned in some of the tantras. Lord Shiva informed Sudakshina that if such a black ritualistic ceremony were performed properly, then the evil spirit named Dakshinagni would appear to carry out any order given to him. He would have to be employed, however, to kill someone other than a qualified Brahmin. In such a case, he would be accompanied by Lord Shiva's ghostly companions, and the desire of Sudakshina to kill his enemy would be fulfilled. I have a question, because here Lord Shiva worship is being recommended. So we have a god brother who is inspired by Shivaram Swami, who started worship of Gopishvara Mahadev at the New Vraj community in Hungary. And this godbrother is saying that of all the rural projects throughout ISKCON, this one is the most successful, and he's conjecturing that this is because Lord Shiva is being worshipped there in this form of Gopishvara Mahadev, which is also done at the Gopal Bhatta temple, and it's where we all go first before beginning a parikram around Vrindavan to get the blessings of Lord Shiva in that particular incarnation. So, generally we read in the Krishna book that Lord Shiva is, worshipped by Brikasura, or in this case here, the son of the king of Kashi, Sudakshina, for some nefarious purpose. I did find one quote where Prabhupada said, yes, you can worship Lord Shiva to increase your bhakti for Krishna, but generally that's not the reason why people worship Lord Shiva. It's for material things. So my question is, regarding time, place, and circumstance, regarding innovations in preaching Krishna consciousness, one sees time, place, and circumstance. There's the argument that, well, Prabhupada never did this in his time, so why speculate? Why do something different than Prabhupada? So I'm just trying to articulate my question right now. That as the years go on, and we're met with different circumstances, like for instance, in Russia, devotees used to sneak books inside big coats. They would take off the walls of the vans and they would hide books there. That was like an innovation for preaching. So yeah, I'm just trying to understand that principle of time, place, and circumstance. And what's your understanding, Rupanuga Prabhu, in terms of innovative preaching, making innovations? And
All right. We have to do what works. Srila made a major innovation coming to America.
right.
If there was ever an innovation, that was it. And he made innovations throughout the Western world, and he made more innovations when he went back to India. Just because a farm project is successful is not an indication of its spirituality. There are many successful farms on this planet. There are many successful family farms on this planet, and larger than ours. Now, Srila Prabhupada, Gita Nagari was done Srila Prabhupada was here, and so were some other farm projects. And they all followed Srila Prabhupada's instructions on installing deities or whatever they did. So, and again, Lord Shiva, the way that we emphasized Lord Shiva when I was GBC there in Washington, we had a picture of Lord Shiva in the temple, but it was a picture of Lord Shiva meditating on Narayan, Lord Narayan. And when Shivaratri came, we had flowers and put garland, to satisfy the need. But there was no compromise there, because it was clearly Lord Shiva was worshiping Lord Narayan. So innovation is a problem. Srila Prabhupada once said, you Americans, you would walk on your hands if you could be different. Just to be different. If you could walk on your hands, you would do it. So this idea of innovating and introducing new ideas is a disease of the Western people. So I think it's fair to say that better to stick to whatever Srila Prabhupada did while he was here, And however, we performed devotional service while he was here. And he showed us so much, gave us all the books, gave us all the instructions while he was here. And it worked. We're here.
We're here. Yeah, correct.
We're here. So it's risky. It's just risky to innovate to a certain point where it becomes actually a change in the parampara mentality, or parampara mission.
Yeah, I think Gaura brought this up a few weeks ago when you were mentioning that at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, there was either a pressure group or some major discussion about accommodating the vast Indian community there with Shivaratri. Do you remember that, Gaura?
Yeah. There was they had to have a whole discussion about it before they would consider maybe doing it next year. I mean, I know myself when I lived in our ISKCON temples, which I did for over 20 years, on Shivaratri Day, I would read this story from Krishna book, the story of when Nanda Maharaj went to, I forget, they performed, I think, Shivaratri on one occasion. And then I would make references to Lord Shiva as the greatest of all Vaishnavas. I mean, I don't think I was exactly celebrating Shivaratri, but I was just reading from Prabhupada's books about Lord Shiva. What do you think, Rupanuga? Was I doing a no-no?
The problem with the Karmakandya Hindus is that they put Krishna, Lord Shiva, Ganesh, all in the same temples.
Yeah.
And we make the distinction.
Mhm.
In fact, we're, by introducing to the Indian community in America, introducing Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is a great step forward for them, even they may be worshiping Lord Krishna. Because I found that when I was preaching to the Indian devotees and life members in Washington, D.C., that many of them had no idea of Lord Chaitanya, although they were Krishna worshipers.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important because it's Lord Chaitanya's name that we know in every town and village, along with Krishna's. So anyway, that's another point. But it's a risk. It's a risk to emphasize something more than Srila Prabhupada emphasized.
Mhm. Yes, it could be a real slippery slope, couldn't it?
And it has been already. And as far as Lord Shiva's position, nobody on this planet has made it clear as to who Lord Shiva is. And he gave us Brahma Samhita also, where his Guru Maharaj makes it very clear in the Brahma Samhita about Lord Shiva's role in creation.
Mm-hmm.
May I add something? Yeah.
Please.
Okay. So Harivilas Prabhu in Seattle, he uses Brahma Samhita during those times, Navaratri, when the 9 days of goddess Durga are worshipped by the Hindus, as well as Shivaratri. He does an amazing explanation from the Brahma Samhita, and of course, coming down to Gauranga. It's amazing, wonderful class. So if we consider the concept of having to introduce Devamarna Ashram, so the Kshatriyas use, even now, there are some Rajputs, leftover Kshatriyas, they still worship Sakti, so which is Durga. So the point is what Rupanuga Prabhu has said, that we have to really make it clear about the present incarnation. But if we consider Varnashram, then we have the option of actually such a wonderful preaching opportunity like Harivilas does, explaining the proper position of all these devtas from Brahma Samhita. So that's the point I want to.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. And another thing is that many temples are, there is no strict rule. So from the top or high up. So some temples are worshipping or using Shivaratri, some are not, and then even at Gaur Purnima. Let's see. All these festivals from, Varnashram are seeping in. So I believe that this might be a natural phenomena, but we take the opportunity of explaining properly. Are we just pure devotional Sarvi Bhakti, go back to Godhead? But Srila Prabhupada wanted 50% of Varnashram, 50% of his work, which is Deva Varnashram. So as devotees, we have to put our heads together.
Look, that's a misunderstanding. He's talking, Srila Prabhupada talked about Daiva Varnashram. There's a difference between Varnashram, plain Varnashram, and Daiva Varnashram. Daiva Varnashram is centered on Krishna. All the persons in all the ashrams and all the varnas are centered on Krishna. They understand the psychophysical nature, the ability in man is all created by Krishna. During Srila Prabhupada's time, he never instituted any of these ceremonies. He was here from 1965 to 77. Plenty of time for him to introduce whatever he wanted, and he did. So what's the point? If we just do the ceremonies we do, and we can explain from Srila Prabhupada's books who Shiva is, what Shiva Linga is, who Mother Durga is, and we can explain all these things, all there in his books. We don't have to celebrate them.
I'd like to respond. Go ahead.
It's all being done to get faith and loyalty from the Indian community, to get donations, to get support. It's a fact that many temples in America are supported by their congregation who are mostly Indian.
Right. And when they find highly qualified Indian doctors say, oh, you should take this, you should do this like this. Well, we're seeing how that's playing out.
That is the point I'm making here, is that the rule from higher up. So temples are doing different things in different areas.
What's missing is the standard. GBC was supposed to teach a standard. And the day of Srila Prabhupada, wherever you went on this planet, in whatever temple you visited in whatever country, they would be doing the same thing. The same standard that Srila Prabhupada gave. It was a duty of the GBC to implement that, and nothing more or nothing less. So the standards for deity worship, the standards for temple worship, the standards for all of that were already set before Srila Prabhupada disappeared.
I'd like to respond to Mata Gandhari because she mentioned it looks like things are going towards Varnashram. So I asked Rameshwar Prabhu a few days ago, I said, I remember that you were with Srila Prabhupada on a train in Bhubaneswar in 1977, and Prabhupada was giving some predictions about the future. And here's a direct quote from Rameshwar. He said, Srila Prabhupada said, the economies in the cities would collapse in the future due to reactions to sinful activities such as drought, famine, etc. When they come to our farms, they must be accommodated, even if they're not following the 4 regs yet. By putting them to work on Krishna conscious farms, they can gradually become devotees. So that's where I believe our godbrother Ramanath Sukha Prabhu is coming from with this idea that the idea of, because people are going to be coming that are not going to be ready to follow the 4 regulated principles, because Prabhupada said they'd be coming by the millions to our farms. And I'm thinking, wow, okay. So how to organize our farms to receive millions of people? So I get all your points, Rupanuga Prabhu, but I'm just thinking, I don't know, with introducing worship of Gopishwara Mahadev, would that be maybe a step for some people who are not ready to worship Gaura Radha Krishna Jagannath?
Srila Prabhupada's design for Mayapur included a section for meat eaters. Okay.
What?
But listen, they were all obviously going to come to the central temple for a kirtan, for arti, for hearing Bhagavatam. Therefore, they would be gradually promoted. See? We're not in such a position like Srila Prabhupada that we can accommodate so many changes. If we have a farm project and we allow people to come and live there who are eating meat, it contradicts our whole cow protection philosophy. It's no big deal to be a vegetarian these days. So many people are vegans. So many people are vegetarians in this country. It's no big deal. Why can't we say you want to live here with us? You have to follow certain principles. We don't want any pigs here. We don't want any chickens. We want cows. Varnashram doesn't mean, like I said, there's two kinds of varnashrams. There's the varnashram, the Karmakanja section, where people are following varnashram to get promoted to the higher planets, or to take a better birth on this planet. That varnashram system is simply to make life happier in this material world. But Daiva varnashram is what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Krishna centered, Ishavashram. He wanted everything centered on Krishna. We can't compromise that. He never said how to accommodate people in that way.
I completely agree with you also. And just going back on the previous point, if you don't mind, of Shivaram Maharaj's farm. Well, I'm very hesitant of making comments here, but I can give you afterwards. Why aren't more people, devotees, moving there? There were 80% of the community members left that community. People don't know about this. And I don't want to publicly mention the reasons, even though I know. So just to, if a project is successful, devotees would normally be flocking. And I completely agree with Rupanuga Prabhu regarding different kinds of varnashram. If you like, I've actually been sharing this information around 50 cities on the guidance, on the request of senior devotees, gurus, some of them. And yeah, I've been studying the subject about differences between different varnashrams. So I'll be happy to share that with you and get your blessing, because Bhakti Raghav Maharaj asked me to publish it as well. Before I do that, I want as many critics as possible so I can improve on it. And that's my project. But yes, Deva Varnashram is Krishna centered. Absolutely. And Gaura Prabhu, I'll privately if you want.
Yes, sure. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Did you mention Bhakti Raghava Swami?
Yes.
Yes, he's an old Ottawa devotee too, Gaura.
Yes.
I don't know if you met him before he took off to India and didn't come back.
No, I didn't. He was Raghava Pandit Das at the time.
That's correct.
He helped to save my life in Mayapur. I was very, very sick with amoebic dysentery. Bhavananda heard about it. He told Prabhupada, and Prabhupada told Bhavananda to arrange for someone to bring me hot, salty puris as I was lying under my mosquito net. And so Raghava Pandit Das one night brought me these hot, salty puris under the order of Prabhupada before I was taken away to the Calcutta Research Hospital. So I have good memories.
That's not the time I was with you. We both went once to the hospital.
Yeah, that was the time.
That was the time. Oh, I didn't get those puris, I'm afraid.
That's because you didn't have a big dysentery, did you?
Well, why are we bringing this particular point up in relation to that devotee? I'm not following the. What about it?
Because if people are coming by the millions, I mean, Lord Shiva is known to be Bhutanath. He's so kind. He's the Lord even of the ghosts and people in the mode of ignorance. So that's where I believe Sukha Prabhu was coming from, that because not everyone's going to be coming to follow the four regs with us, but they will be coming to take shelter as the cities fall apart more and more and people are unemployed more and more. So are we going to, we have to figure out how to accommodate them. So perhaps Lord Shiva has a role to play there. I'm not.
That's speculation. That's nothing to do with Lord Shiva helping or accommodating. We have Gauranga even more merciful than anyone.
The main thing Srila Prabhupada stressed was feeding people, feeding them prasadam. And we're so, ISKCON, and even devotees outside of ISKCON are so far away from having even hardly a decent farm project, what to speak of accommodating anyone, even accommodating devotees.
Mhm.
Yes.
You were talking about the future, and actually we're on the brink. We're on the brink, but that doesn't mean that, I mean, we have to make compromises. The best thing, in my humble opinion, is wherever people come to a farm project, feed them prasadam, have them chanting, and explain the philosophy. It's not a time to compromise. And we have to be very strong right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I noticed that there was tremendous impact, whatever you think of in terms of the Bhaktivedanta manner, whatever your opinions are. There's one thing that remains so moving there in and amongst everything else that they do, and that is the Shala.
Wait, can you say that
And
again?
I
You're
went
breaking up.
there,
Say that
and-
again, please. Repeat that again. Your
Oh,
voice.
sorry. Okay. So at the Bhaktivedanta manner, one of the things they really do have right, which is extremely compelling, is the Goshala. And it's very, very nicely looked after. They have a state-of-the-art dairy right next to the cow pens. It has a sort of floor-to-ceiling window, so you can look in and see the Vaishnavas making all these milk sweets. Right next to that are the cow pens with Prabhupada's voice singing over the cow pens. It's so moving. It reduced me to tears. And then you can buy little plates of spinach and feed the cows. And there are coach loads of school children that come every week. This was pre-pandemic, and I actually saw this happening. And they all get kind of funneled through the Goshala feeding the cows spinach. And then they all go around to, the deities in the temple room, and they receive prasadam and they see how the dairy works. And then they also get a ride around the grounds in this marvelous cart with these huge bullocks, which of course, the school children absolutely adore. Most of these London school children don't even know where corn and peas come from, and never touched a cow in their life, possibly never even seen a cow in their life. So I will say that it really is to the credit at the Bhaktivedanta manner that they have held fast to that in and amongst all the Bollywood weddings and everything else. They really have the Goshala front and center. And I was hugely moved by that. I thought it was absolutely wonderful.
I can add something to it. This will not many people know about it. Is the Ahimsa dairy is already supplying so much different products from the dairy in London, and they have 1,000 people waiting list to go further up north, all the way to Leicester and other parts of UK. They have ghee, cheese, paneer, butter, yogurt, all these things you can check out under Ahimsa Dairy and see.
Thank you. Yeah, it's wonderful. And actually, just on the tail end of this, as a passing point, they did actually receive a rather wonderful letter from the Queen during the pandemic, giving them an award for their prasadam distribution the whole way through the pandemic. So they do have a very good thing that they've held on to there. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Vasant Prabhu, would you like to continue?
Sure. We are reading.
When Sudakshina was encouraged by Lord Shiva, it's the top of the page.
Acha, when Sudakshina was encouraged by Lord Shiva in that way, he became assured that he would be able to kill Krishna. With a determined vow of austerity, he began to execute the black art of chanting mantras, assisted by the priests. After this, out of the fire came a great demonic form, whose hair, beard, and mustache were exactly the color of hot copper. This form was very big and fierce. As the demon arose from the fire, Cinders of fire emanated from the sockets of his eyes. The giant fiery demon appeared still more fierce due to the movements of his eyebrows. He exhibited long, sharp teeth, and sticking out his long tongue, licked both sides of his lips. He was naked, and he carried a big trident, which was blazing like fire. After appearing from the fire of sacrifice, he stood wielding the trident in his hand. Instigated by Sudakshina, the demon proceeded toward the capital city Dwarka, along with many hundreds of ghostly companions, and it appeared he was going to burn all outer space to ashes. The surface of the earth trembled because of his striking steps. When he entered the city of Dwarka, all the residents panicked, just like animals at the time of a forest fire.
Thank you. Rupa Vilas Prabhu.
At that time, Krishna was engaged in playing chess in the Royal Assembly Council Hall. All the residents of Dwarka approached and addressed him. Dear Lord of the three worlds, there's a great fiery demon ready to burn the whole city of Dwarka. Please save us. Thus, after approaching Lord Krishna, all the inhabitants of Dwarka began to appeal to him for protection from the fiery demon who had just appeared in Dwarka to devastate the whole city.
Rupanuga Prabhu.
Lord Krishna, who specifically protects his devotees, saw that the whole population of Dwarka was most perturbed by the presence of the great fiery demon. He immediately began to smile and assured them, "Don't worry, I shall give you all protection." The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is all-pervading. He is within everyone's heart, and he is without also in the form of the cosmic manifestation. He could understand that the fiery demon was a creation of Lord Shiva, and in order to vanquish him, he took his Sudarshan chakra and ordered him to take the necessary steps. The Sudarshan chakra appeared with the effulgence of millions of suns, his temperature being as powerful as that of the fire created at the end of the cosmic manifestation. By his own effulgence, the Sudarshan chakra began to illuminate the entire universe on the surface of the earth as well as in outer space. Then the Sudarshan chakra began to freeze the fiery demon created by Lord Shiva. In this way, the fiery demon was checked by the Sudarshan chakra of Lord Krishna, and being defeated in his attempt to devastate the city of Dwarka, he turned back.
Nandapatni.
Go ahead.
Nandapatni Prabhu.
Having failed to set fire to Dwarka, he went back to Varanasi, the kingdom of Kashiraj. As a result of his return, all the priests who had helped instruct the black art of mantras, along with their employer, Sudakshina, were burned into ashes by the glaring effulgence of the fiery demon. According to the methods of black art mantras instructed in the Tantra, if the mantra fails to kill the enemy, then because it must kill someone, it kills the original creator. Sudakshina was the originator, and the priests assisted him. Therefore, all of them were burned to ashes. This is the way of the demons. The demons create something to kill God, but by the same weapon, the demons themselves are killed.
Prairie.
Following just behind the fiery demon, the Shudrashana chakra also entered Varanasi. The city of Varanasi had been very opulent and great for a very long time. Even now, the city of Varanasi is very opulent and famous, and it is one of the most important cities of India. There were then many big palaces, assembly houses, marketplaces, and gates with very important large monuments by the palaces and gates. Lecturing platforms could be found at each and every crossing of the roads. There was a treasury house and elephant heads, horse heads and chariots, granaries and places for distribution of foodstuff. The city of Varanasi had been filled with all of these material opulences for a very long time, But because the king of Kashi and his son Sudakshina were against Lord Krishna, the Vishnu Chakra Shudrashana, the disc weapon of Lord Krishna, devastated the whole city by burning all these important places.
Wow.
This exclusion was more ravaging than modern bombing. The Shudarashana Chakra, having thus finished his duty, came back to his Lord Sri Krishna at Dwarka.
Might as well finish the section.
Yes. This narration of the devastation of Varnashi by Krishna's disc weapon, the Sudrashana Chakra, is transcendental and auspicious. Anyone who narrates this story or anyone who hears this story with faith and attention will be released from all reaction to sinful activities. This is the assurance of Sukadeva Goswami, who narrated this story of Parikshit Maharaj. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 65th chapter of Krishna, Deliverance of Paundraka and the King of Kashi.
Isn't that amazing? All of us just got freed from any remaining reaction to sinful activities this evening by reading together.
You were paying
Haribo.
attention.
What, Nandapatni?
Because you were paying such good attention.
I have a point I want to bring up, but before I bring up my point, I'd like to know, Shuddha Sindhu, Dvija, Mata Gandhari, John's iPhone, is that Janu Muni Prabhu? I'm not sure.
Jivan Mukta, isn't it?
Oh, it could be Jivan Mukta, yeah.
It is. So I'm just here listening to everyone, taking everything in.
Okay, cool. We even have Tejas Prabhu here. He's a silent listener, but of course we'd more than welcome hearing any comments from him. Tejas Prabhu became a devotee because he met Rupanuga Prabhu at the University of Buffalo somewhere around 1968, and this is my attempt at doing a reunion for the two of them. But Tejas Prabhu has been challenged with his health. Are you able to speak anything, Tejas Prabhu, or do you just have to listen? It's up to you. Does anyone have anything that stood out for you tonight from this pastime? Any reflections? If not, I've got a juicy point to bring up.
I have one. When
Yes.
you are ready.
Yes, go ahead.
You see, we made some wonderful points regarding Lord Shiva worship and other Varnashram implementation or so-called. Why can't we do something practical? You know, like I gave the example to you, I sent you, but I don't know if you've read it. You know, like when during King Vena's time, the sages got together and worked out a solution. Chanakya Pandit personally went different cities looking for the solution of finding the right king. Swami Ramdev, although he's now part of the other side, he personally went village to village to collect donation for his institute. So I'm just saying, why can't we do something practical to let the GBC know? And of course, if it is truth, many people will support it, and then the GBC will have to do one standard.
Let the GBC know what exactly?
About request for having one single standard, and that is Prabhupada standard in all the temples.
In regards to what?
Shiva worship.
The GBC already knows that. The GBC is supposed to, if they don't know it, I don't see how it's possible. GBC was trained originally to know all the standards. The GBC was supposed to travel and see the standards were being implemented. So the GBC knows the standard. They should know the standard.
If it is not being done, then it is about time that practically we can, say something about it, remind them again, because maybe people change, they forget, they don't want to follow some of the rules. I'm saying, what's the point of speaking and becoming upset when there are ways and avenues where something could be done about it?
You may not be aware But many occasions have been there when Srila Prabhupada's disciples have approached the JBC for various reasons,
Mm.
and nothing's been done. One of the major things they appointed or approached them about was the revisions of the books. And the GBC approved of it. They approve of it. All the gurus, the GBC, the temple, everybody in position of authority in ISKCON right now approves of it. Here in Alachua, they don't allow Srila Prabhupada's original books to be sold.
What?
If I wanted to go and give a class using the original Bhagavad Gita, it would not be permitted. I have to use a revised version.
That is beyond egregious.
Well, I'm just telling you that, you know, if you get into it and you go and travel around different temples, there are so many standards that are adjusted, so many demands. And when
Krishna, Krishna,
listen,
Krishna.
when you start paying people for devotional service, you get
Mhm.
them serving the money and not the cause. That's
Thank
the
you.
problem.
Yeah, that's the case in Philadelphia. And then when you have a community of well-meaning, Indian professionals on your board of directors, and they have the majority, they're going to demand how things are done, which aren't necessarily, in keeping with.
That's
precisely
listen.
what
That
Prabhupada wanted.
is another innovation. Srila Prabhupada created temple presidents and secretaries and treasurers. And he did not create a board to run a temple.
Right.
Mhm.
That's all a new innovation.
Yeah.
The temple was run by a temple president and his assistants,
Mhm.
and the overall standards were looked after by the GBC. So this is all new, that boards of directors have jurisdiction over managing temples.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's
Yes,
a
I was very
major.
shocked. I was so very shocked when I saw that. I went back to Philadelphia after 40 years, whatever it was, and I was beyond dismayed, because I was there kind of in a heyday when the BTG were there, and all sorts of great people, Ravindra and Shubhananda and on, Jayadvaita, blah blah blah. But it was, I was very naive, and I hadn't realized what had happened in the evolution of the movement.
It's happening in many temples, even
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
in so many temples.
Mhm.
There's over 80 devotees that are paid at Bhaktivedanta Manor to help put on the Gujarati weddings there.
So how do you square that with certain things that Prabhupada says in his purports about that the people who are born in Bharatvash, that they will actually end up, preaching this movement, or at least, at the very least, Prabhupada was eliciting or requesting them to do so.
Well, everyone born in India is 50% Krishna conscious at birth. Srila Prabhupada explained that. He explained that because of the rulers, the politicians, that this is is crushed. It's crushed. So they have not been allowed to develop. They've gone after, he said they're following the politicians instead of Krishna. So the Varnashram system in India has been ruined.
But can we see a positive side in the history of our mission here, that with, after all, although I've just stated a negative, because, certain people on boards are not exactly being with Prabhupada standards, but can we see any kind of positive where actually they've floated the temples, people still come, they see the deities, they have prasad, hopefully there's someone giving a lecture from Prabhupada's books. do we see this as part of the overall evolution? I mean, I go to Silicon Valley and I take a guest with me, and we're the only Anglo-Saxon bodied people there. And I'm the only one that actually really preaches to this lady, because it's not so much that the community there come forward to actually preach to a guest like we used to in the Sunday feasts.
Yeah.
But do we see a positive aspect to this stage in the history of this movement?
May I add something? What's happening here?
Hold
How's-
on. Let's just let Rupanuga respond to that first, if you don't mind, Mata Gandhari.
Yeah, that was a direct question. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to hear what Mataji has to say first.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thousands of people are coming in Mayapur every weekend. End of the month, there's hardly space to move around. They're all getting prashadam. They're hearing, chanting, participate in Harinam, and of course, temple programs, accommodations. And the second point is a lot of brahmacharis in India traveling in buses all over, and they're preaching. Not only that, but unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at, the pujaris are exported from India to
Yes.
many temples in the
Yes.
West.
Yes.
And they're being, but this is what's going on. But India seems to have woken up. So many temples everywhere preaching. And just to bring another point to your attention, that all the temples in West also, we call it Hinduization. This is my perception, is the Hindus or devotees from West Eastern culture are actually preaching vigorously. When I was in Vancouver, a person would have a birthday party and he would invite 500 family members. Gradually, so many family members would become devotees, take initiation. So the thing is, they're preaching. And in the 80s, late 80s, I came up with this suggestion that those proper disciples who left the temples, the system had changed. Why can't they form Varnashram traveling party? Vanaprastha traveling party. And if they would travel, I think there is Bhagavad Ashraya. He's been doing that for so long in England. It's from Australia. So that's what I was thinking. But the point is, yes, the Indians have woken up, they are preaching, and the class I listened was mind-blowing. It just reminded me, if I'm correct, that Srila Prabhupada, I don't know whether he said that they are 80% close to Krishna and facing opposite. When they become, when they turn towards Krishna, my God, they take scriptures from different, they take quotes from different scriptures and make a point. It was so amazing to hear these Hindi lectures by some of the people from the Eastern culture. Anyway, so that's my point and my observation here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Rupanuga Prabhu, you had a response?
Well, first of all, I think we owe it to the Indian community for keeping the American yatra going.
Yeah.
First of all, that has to be acknowledged because Americans are not joining like they did before. Now, why is that? Because in every country, we're after the people who live there. When we go, we don't just parachute in there and start open a temple and that's it. No, we want to attract the local people of that particular country. So question is why less Americans joining? They're not being preached to, obviously, or they would be coming. You see? So there's both sides of it. All the emphasis on the Indian congregations and their management is very good because they're keeping the whole thing going. At the same time, they also bring with them a lot of Indian culture and interject it also. It sort of mixes in with the original standards that Srila Prabhupada set that had not been so much sustained as he would have liked to see. So another point I want to make is about change. Someone asked Srila Prabhupada about how the Gita was changed, that Gita that was given to the sun god and so on and lost a lot of stuff. What happened? Srila Prabhupada said, well, over a period of time, it was changed, and nothing was left. So we have to be careful. And the carefulness has to be there by the management. You see, we don't want to discourage anyone. We want everyone to be attracted, but we want the people of a particular country to be attracted.
Mhm.
If the Indian devotees can run the temples all over the world. But my point is this. One time I asked a big guru, GBC, in India, if he could send me a few brahmacharis to teach how to preach in America. You know what his answer was? Oh, we have so many projects in India. When Lord Chaitanya charged the Indian people to preach around the world, they trained up preachers there. These brahmacharis should be out preaching around the world.
Mhm.
I mean, India doesn't need them. India's got the culture. They've got the temples. I mean, there's what, 12 or 13 ISKCON temples in Delhi?
Yeah.
So much energy is going into India. That's fine. Srila Prabhupada went and did that too. Rejuvenated Krishna consciousness in India. But what about the rest of the world? If we're going to train up these people who are already 50% Krishna conscious, they should be good preachers. So let them come out. We started from 0, and they start from 50%.
Mhm.
They were made good preachers. I remember when I was a younger man in college, even later years, people always respected India for spiritual knowledge. They respected Indians when they wanted to hear about transcendental meditation. In fact, the reason I went to Buffalo was because someone asked an Indian master's degree student if he could teach a course in transcendental meditation. He says, I don't know anything about that, but I've seen some people in New York.
Mhm.
And so the New York storefront, so-called temple, was contacted. Can you send somebody here to teach a course in transcendental meditation? They asked him because he was an Indian.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that respect there has been. So what happens if you send out thousands of Indians trained up in India to preach? That's what should be going on out of India. That is the proof of success in India. That
Mhm.
Indians come out and preach.
Mhm.
It's true, because in the communities, I'm making a very sweeping statement here, but I'm comparing it to the past when we were all preaching in the temples, and we would have the Sunday feast, and we would attract people to coming to the temples. And at a Sunday feast, there was so much conversation between a person that you would have bought and introducing to what they are seeing and what this is all about. And so my sweeping generalization and observation is that that's not necessarily the same amongst the Indian community. And that's why, an experience recently I've had in taking a Western person to the temple, and I can see what she's thinking. It's like, wow, this is just a whole kind of Indian thing. Where do I fit? Where do I fit into this? I know that sounds a little bit superficial, but it's just such a kind of topsy-turvy phenomenon from where we used to be. I'm kind of stating the obvious, but I'm wondering how it unfolds, so that the mood of Prabhupada, the Nivishesha Sunivare, that he comes to the Deshatarane, he comes to the Western countries for the Western people. Okay, now all the Indian people are sort of floating the yatras, but where are all our Western people, and how do we attract them again without the Western
I'll give you
a Hindu thing? Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
When I was temple president in Washington and GBC back in the 80s, the local Indians, who are also congregational members, many of them, were having get-togethers in each other's homes. They would have a meeting in their home, and there would be 100 Indians there.
Yeah, I know.
And they would invite me. I would go and give some talk, but there were no Americans.
Yeah.
I said to them, I tried to get this going before I had to leave. I tried to get them to say, you are respected, you are intelligent, you are honest, you're known amongst the people you work with. Why don't you invite them to your home for prasadam? Tell them your wife's a good cook. Tell them you want anything. And as soon as you get there, you can start talking about Bhagavad Gita, and everybody respects that.
Yeah.
So the Indians don't preach to the Americans.
Hmm.
The Indians don't preach to the Brits. The Indians don't preach.
Exactly. So
They-
how will that change?
Let me make this point.
Yeah.
The missionary spirit, which
Mhm.
is the spine of this movement,
Yes.
Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of what Chaitanya's missionary spirit.
Yep.
That missionary spirit is supposed to be taught to the brahmacharis. They're supposed to be taught to the Indians in India. They're supposed to be taught to the Indians in America. The Indians in America are intelligent. They're wealthy. They're highly respected. They're productive. They're resourceful. If they learn how to preach, it could change the whole thing. But who's teaching them how to preach?
I'd like to respond to that, please, if I may.
Go ahead.
So Vaisheshika Prabhu comes from your Silicon Valley there to
Yeah.
Toronto. At least he used to. Now he's in England, but in previous years he'd come twice a year for 5 days at a time, and he'd get the Indian community, which is about 99% of our congregation. There's like a small percentage of Russians that come. But pretty much it's all Indians, like 300 Indians at the Sunday feast, and he would enthuse them so much that he created book distributors just out of the Indian devotees. They became fired up. They called them weekend warriors, and they would go door to door, not discriminating, knocking on the doors of Muslims, of white people, this, that, you name it. So I think that's quite an accomplishment of Vaisheshika Prabhu. I'd also like to respond. I was speaking with our god sister, Praharna Devi Dasi, who's also one of the administrators or on the council there in the Toronto temple, and she told me, Gaura, we're just going to have for the Westerners, we're just going to have like a Saturday feast because it's not practical to bring them on Sunday because it's all Indians. And they're just kind of like overwhelmed by the presence of all the Indians. Exactly the same point that's being made.
Yeah,
They feel kind of out of place. I even heard recently, even one of my god sisters was attending a program, and a young Indian devotee came up and said, "You're not playing the clackers properly," and just took them out of their hands. And I'm thinking, well, that doesn't really sound like proper etiquette. But anyway, this is going on.
Well, I'll
No,
give you another
yeah.
example. I'll give another example. In Washington, D.C., my friend Paundraka, who has a wonderful Sankirtan party going on now for 6 years. And they distribute a lot of books, and a lot of people participate. He was sitting at a temple feast, and a devotee sat down next to him who was not an Indian and said to him, "Aren't we Hindus?"
Oh, that's the worst joke of the 21st century.
You know,
Do you know in the manor they have a Saturday feast also for the Western people? And I kind of disagree with Rupanuga Prabhu on here, why Indians have to go. Of course, you say Lord Chaitanya said that, but what about the local devotees in the local country? Like in Iceland, there is a devotee preaching. In Alaska, there are local devotees preaching. In Tasmania, it's the local group. And there was an issue in East Africa just because the Indians were preaching. And you know what happened? They would discriminate with the local black people and would not allow them on the altar. So Vishnu Swami, what's his name? Sorry, I might mistake the name. He
Mahavishnu? Mahavishnu?
Mahavishnu Maharaj, he could see like the Indians were discriminating with the local people, only making the Indian temple, they would not allow them on the altar. So Mahavishnu Maharaj made this amazing plan. He would go to the places where he would specifically make a point not to open a temple. As soon as there is temple, then there is deity worship, and then there is Indian congregation. So he is preaching so widely in other towns, making sure there is no temples, otherwise the Hindu will take over. So he's preaching to the locals, going to the schools for doing food distribution. So my point is, opposite to what Prabhu said, was the local people have to preach to their own. So Indians are taking on Lord Chaitanya's instruction and they're preaching to their own. So what about the Prabhupada disciples, the Westerners who got so much mercy from Srila Prabhupada? If they either form Vanaprastha parties or revive the preaching movement again, they have so much potency. They were given so much potency, so they can preach in their own countries, in their own towns and villages. And then instead of calling it Hinduization, we can have like in the Loft, New Zealand, they have separate programs, the Loft, I guess. And in London, they have separate programs, even in the city for the Westerners. Anyway, so this is my point. Thank you.
Very good. Very
I
good.
never said that the local Americans should not be preaching. If they do preach, they'll attract people. I never said that. I was simply saying about how to engage all these Indian congregation members and how to engage some Indians to come out of India and preach, because that's what Srila Prabhupada wanted. He tried to get help. He tried to get Indians to come with him. He said at least one Indian has come out. So it's both sides.
Yeah.
The local Americans have to be encouraged to preach, of course. That's always there. The question is, why have some of the senior devotees, American devotees, or Caucasian, or whatever you want to call us, why have we slowed down? It's not, Srila Prabhupada was 70 when he came here. So why have we slowed down? See, there's been a reason for that. And if we think about it, we'll understand that reason. We're not encouraged to preach. We're not recognized as senior devotees. We're not looked up to as Srila Prabhupada's disciples. The newer generations rather would go on their own rather than listen. And some of us don't want to preach and attract people to an ISKCON that's out of standard. There's a lot of reasons. And there's a lot of potency out there. There's a lot of potency in this Zoom. I can hear it. Now, the ring of truth is so there, much strong. But where is the encouragement? Where is the opportunity? Therefore, I said before that I believe the next step in order to make this movement a cultural movement, you have to have roots in families. I believe the emphasis that Srila Prabhupada said, this is not churchianity. The people come here on Sunday and then come back next Sunday. This expands into every phase of life. He said, we want them to take the idea home and introduce it in their private life. And perhaps we can sell them the paraphernalia of kirtan, mridangas and cartels and deities. You see, I believe that the next step to make this movement, the Hare Krishna movement that Srila Prabhupada brought here, to make it a cultural movement that he wanted, is to introduce it into people's homes. To encourage, to train people how to preach to people, that this is for you, for your personal life, for your family. The same thing that our Lord Chaitanya preached to Kurma Brahman. And Srila Prabhupada said, this is our movement. We want people to chant and read Bhagavatam at home with their friends and relatives. And that's called
very
cultural.
encouraging. That's very encouraging, Prabhu, because, it has remained a bit of a conundrum, with the large Indian communities. I mean, even in Silicon Valley, where Vaisheshika has managed to train his Indian disciples to distribute oodles of books. But nonetheless, when I go there, and if I take a Western person with me, there is not one person in that 200, 300 person crowd that will come forward and preach to this guest that I have brought. So I love the point you're making about just preaching in your own sphere, in your own community, right where you are.
And I think the emphasis has to be on the people to understand. We're not asking you to join an organization.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada said people have lost their faith in organized religion.
Yeah.
And what ISKCON is doing is becoming metamorphosed into an organized religion.
Yeah.
This is not going to appeal to Westerners.
Yeah. No,
When I was a college student, My friends, none of us, there wasn't an atheist in the bunch. But when you talked about organized religion, everybody was bored.
Yeah.
Talk about something else.
Yeah.
I have a
So
comment and I have a question, but finish, Rupanuga Prabhu.
I'm just saying, unless we have roots in people's homes, in their families, there's no cultural movement. And this movement is intended as an alternative culture to the prevailing Darwinism and nihilism and progressivism that predominates in this world.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Srila Prabhupada is introducing a different paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it, we have to bring it into people's homes where they're comfortable. Look, all these books distributed, what happened to them? They went into people's homes. They took them home. So these deities are already there. Srila Prabhupada said these books are deities. So these deities are sitting, are millions of them in people's homes. It's already been started.
Mm.
Perfection at home, I call it. Perfection at home. People have to understand they can reach perfection in their own homes.
Yeah. Very
They
nice.
can worship Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada said if they put a picture of Panchatattva in their house, they're worshiping Lord Chaitanya.
Mhm.
And we don't care if they're meeting meat. We say, look, why don't you make 2 or 3 offerings a week of pure vegetarian preparations? We use it ghee, cook with ghee, because ghee gives them the taste that they want in the meat. The blood is transformed into ghee. Srila Prabhupada told us that. People will lose their taste by taking ghee.
Mm-hmm.
They'll lose their taste for the blood. So we have to introduce vegetarianism. Just eat, okay. So you're attached to the meat, okay. So 3 days a week, offer some vegetable prasadam to this picture of Lord Chaitanya. We can be very liberal. Get them
Sure.
started. Get them started. But the roots have to be there. Unless there's roots, this movement will not become a cultural movement. Culture means all phases of life. It means everything. The work you're doing has to be seen as work for Krishna. You have to dovetail your work. If you're a butcher, you can't do that. But everybody out there has to work, and they're usually working according to their psychophysical nature, usually anyway.
Absolutely.
So they have to dovetail it.
Okay, we've got Jivamukta Prabhu is raising his hand. I still want to respond to you, and I have a question for you, but I'm going to put Jivamukta first. Jivamukta Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhus. I really appreciate what is being said. Uh, if I could bring my perspective into it, I agree with everything that's being said. But one of the things that I think we're forgetting is at the end, or maybe not forgetting, but in 1977, it became very, very clear that Prabhupada was not so interested in just expanding, just like mindlessly, just expanding. Prabhupada really was focusing on like boiling that milk. And he really, that's why he wanted to establish Varnashram, because it is a cultural movement. It is a cultural revolution. You have people coming to the West, okay? You have these Indian people coming to the West. And yes, they're devotees. But what do they also imbibe with their perspective of Krishna consciousness? I've seen it. I've seen this rampant feminism. I've seen this rampant embrace of Western culture, completely the antithesis of what Prabhupada wanted. And the more of these the more this mentality spreads in the name of Krishna consciousness, because it's diluted. It's a diluted form of what Prabhupada, from what I could read, what Prabhupada wanted. Prabhupada wanted something genuinely Vedic, genuinely reflecting the original culture of Vaikuntha. And we don't have that. We have a mix. This is a hybrid. And one of the fundamental problems that I see still is the whole guru situation. I mean, you have a lot of devotees, Western devotees, who were around during Prabhupada's time and who I've heard say, okay, so I go out and I preach and I see, some nice young white Caucasian people want to become devotees, who do I send them to? I don't feel comfortable sending them to this person or that person or that person, because I've seen what happens to them.
Then you missed my point. My point was they don't have to be told they have to join the org. They don't have to be told they have to have a guru. Srila
Fair enough.
Prabhupada said, anyone who reads my books is initiated. So we want them to take Srila Prabhupada. We want them to have Srila Prabhupada. He's the founder acharya. He's the world acharya. You see, that's more than any localized conception. The individual person has to understand this is self-realization. And to be self-realized, you have to follow Srila Prabhupada's progress, his prototype, his instructions. It doesn't require to go to the temple. It doesn't require anything like that. It just requires reading the books, following the instructions, inviting your friends over, and having some devotee in the area, may come like a circuit preacher or something, to come and encourage everyone. But this whole idea that it's temple, it's not working.
I agree.
It's not working. It has to get, people have to listen. Say a book distributor is out there. Why can't he tell an interested person who shows a little bit more interest than others that this is for you? This progress is for you. This movement is a grassroots movement. It's for you to enjoy in your home. This chanting, this prasadam, this book reading with others. It's for you, a person. It's for you. It's not for the org. It's for you. It's for you to have a relationship with Srila Prabhupada. Anybody on this planet can accept Srila Prabhupada as their Shiksha Guru. Anybody. All they got to do is agree his books are true. All they got to do is read and study and say yes. That's all. They don't have to have anything else, except the first step is to believe in Srila Prabhupada's words and his books. They become devotees.
I'd like to add something to that.
Please.
I was living as a first-class hippie in Southern Florida, and
First class.
Not second class, first class. And one day, my cousin brought home a hardbound copy of Sri Upanishad, and he said, "I'm not very much into this. Some devotee distributed it to him, but maybe you will like it because I know you're interested into yoga and stuff." And so over the next day or so, I read the introduction to Sri Upanishad, and I asked my cousin, "Where did you get this book?" He said, "Oh, there's a bunch of saffron hippies down in the park, and they gather there every Sunday. That's where I got it." And I said, "Okay." And that's how I met devotees for the first time, and that changed my life.
Who did you meet?
I met actually the devotee I met who preached to me initially was Chaitanya Jivan, and I think he may have passed recently. Chaitanya
No,
Jivan.
he's in our sangha. He's acting as he's in movies. He's as an actor, and he's distributing books to the other actors.
Well, and 2 or 3 weeks later, I moved into the Miami Temple, which was then on Kumquat Avenue in Coconut Grove.
Jai. I'd like to respond to Rupanuga's question. Why have things slowed down? Well, I can speak for myself, and I'll speak for another godbrother, Lakshminath, and Jivan Mukta has already addressed it. When I was with Rupa Vilas Prabhu at our Ottawa temple back in 76, 77, and the early 80s, we were receiving at our Ottawa temple the Bhakta program newsletter. Remember that, Rupa? And so Danavir Prabhu at that time, Vipramukhya, and Rohini Nandan, those three made this dynamic trio, and they developed this system that if you got someone to stay overnight, you got so many Bhakta points. If you got them to stay over for the weekend, you got even more Bhakta points. If you got them to shave their head, you got 100 Bhakta points. And if you got them to stay a week, you get 1,000 Bhakta points. So I remember I was fervently praying to Krishna, my dear Lord Krishna, if you so desire, please empower me today when I go on Harinam. So one day I remember going out like that, and a young man came by working for the government. His name was Bruce. And I gave him a Bhagavad Gita, told him what it was about. He took it. And in that particular issue of the Bhakti Program newsletter, I remember it saying, you should always take japa beads with you also when you go out to distribute books. And I'd never done that before. So I brought some japa beads. And then I remembered that I had some on me after he took the book. I said, oh, wait a minute, before you go, if you chant the Hari, this mantra here, and I had to always carry invitation cards with me, then it'll help you to understand the book better. It'll have a purifying effect on your and if you read the book, it'll inspire you to chant more. And I showed him how to chant on the beads. I sent him back to the Ottawa temple to meet our god sister Padyavali, who was then married to Rochan Prabhu at the time. And then they sent him to Toronto, and he's been Brahmadas, the head pujari there, for like 35 years on that altar, doing thousands and thousands of artiks. So I'm just going back to remembering how enthusiastic I was in Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto temple, because I was bringing them to Srila Prabhupada. But then gradually, as I saw my different guru godbrothers coming in as zonal acharyas and treating their own godbrothers, very rudely or just ignoring them completely, never consulting with them, I lost my enthusiasm because as Lakshminath Prabhu, our old friend, godbrother, said to me, come on, Gaura, you're going to make a devotee. You're going to send him to this person who's a guru or that person. We don't even have a relationship with these people. They don't even talk to us. They don't even acknowledge us. So, why would you want to make devotees for so-and-so, Swami?
Okay,
And
look, you have to learn that. Listen, we as disciples, direct disciples of Srila Prabhupada, are empowered to bring them to him, like we were brought to him by other devotees. So we have the power, if we take it, to convince people to accept Srila Prabhupada as their spiritual master, to believe in his books and practice what he preaches. We don't have to invite them to visit a temple to hear what Krishna consciousness means. We can explain it to them.
Yeah.
We can give them a book. We can encourage them to take it
Prabhu, I'm on a Zoom call right now with other devotees, and this is what I'm doing.
Look, I'll have to mute you if you're going to talk, Vasant Prabhu. I'll have to mute you.
anyway.
Thank you.
Anyway, I'm making this point that Krishna consciousness does not, just like Bhaktisiddhanta. When he saw his men were getting attached to the properties, he said, I'd rather sell the marble, tear up the marble and print books. And Srila Prabhupada made it clear, we don't have to keep opening temples. What we have to do is have this cultural movement. So the problem I see is how we're going to implement this next phase, because ISKCON's not doing it. They're not doing it. They're not concerned about a cultural movement or an educational institution. They're concerned about an organized religion.
That's my question. My question is, what are the traits of an organized religion? Is it centralization? Is that one of the predominant traits of when a spiritual movement starts becoming an organized religion? Is it about bureaucracy? Is that centralization?
Let me read to you what Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur says.
Okay.
He says, this is an essay entitled Organized Religion. He says, the idea of an organized religion in an intelligible form indeed marks the close of the living spiritual movement. The great ecclesiastic establishment are the dikes and dams to retain the current that cannot be held by such contrivances. They indeed indicate a desire on the part of the masses to exploit a spiritual movement for their own purpose. They also unmistakably indicate the end of the absolute and unconventional guidance of the bona fide spiritual teacher. The people of this world understand preventative systems. They have no idea at all of the unprevented positive eternal life. Neither can there be any earthly contrivance for the permanent preservation of the life eternal on this mundane plane on the popular scale. So he's saying here, people want an easy street. And that's what organized religion gives them. They indeed indicate a desire on the part of masses to exploit a spiritual movement. So the more it's watered down, the less quality there will be. Srila Prabhupada was not interested in quantity, he was interested in quality. Because the quality devotees do the preaching. And they help the people, whatever level they are on.
Correct.
This is why I love your preaching, Rupanuga Prabhu. You're right bang on. I totally agree with you.
Well, I'm not saying anything new. Srila
No,
Prabhupada-
I know. But that's why it's so. I told Gaura that it's like it's just beautiful to hear it, because it's like exactly what I read in Prabhupada's books. It's exactly what I understand when I read in Prabhupada's books, and it's so nice to hear it vocalized by his senior disciples like yourself.
It's not spoken very much in ISKCON though. You won't hear a class or a talk like this within the.
I'm not in ISKCON. I'm not in ISKCON. I left ISKCON in 1989 when I resigned as GBC and temple president of Washington Temple. I was part of a movement here in Alachua to build a temple. Actually, the idea to build a temple came from me. When I first moved here in 1989, the local leaders of the small Grihasta community asked me what I thought should be a project. And I said, we can't keep going to worship the deities in a single wide trailer and then go home to houses more elaborate. How can we do that?
Mm-hmm.
We have to build them a temple like we live in.
Makes sense.
And they started raising funds to build a temple. And first of all, they expanded the single wide trailer they were in. They enlarged that because there wasn't enough money yet to build a temple. But then gradually, somebody came forward and gave $150,000 donation.
Wow. Rupanuga Prabhu, I disagree with you that you're not in ISKCON. You are ISKCON.
Look, there's two things. There's ISKCON and there's a Hare Krishna movement that Srila Prabhupada brought to America. I never left that movement.
Thank you.
I never left that movement.
Prabhu, Nanpatni Mataji has her hand up.
Nandapatni, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to clarify a point. I really like the points you're making. And so, as far as I'm understanding, it's not particularly necessary to take someone to a temple. It's not particularly necessary to take someone to one of one's god brothers. So for me, the question of initiation remains because we all received a formal initiation to Srila Prabhupada. So if you have an interested person and you're kind of preaching in every town and village and in your home, etc., etc., what is the protocol or process or view on initiation, given that you are leading somebody to Srila Prabhupada?
Okay. I'm not prepared really to get into the details, but this is described in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I believe I can get, we don't have time now. For next time I'll have it, where it's described that initiation is not required to chant the holy name purely.
Okay.
So we have to understand that.
Yeah.
And we also have to understand that for a person to be able to chant without offense, they have to have a guru to inspire them, to guide them. And that guru is called Srila Prabhupada. And
Yeah.
Prabhupada is the world acharya. So this movement, in my humble opinion, is planned to be especially based upon Srila Prabhupada for the next 9,500 years.
Okay, got it.
So how do you do that? You have to learn the art of preaching to people that they can have Srila Prabhupada direct.
I got it. Okay.
Seek your guru, Srila Prabhupada. And as I tell people, look, if you want to prove that you've accepted Srila Prabhupada in due time, reading his books and so on, the proof is you follow the 4 regs and you chant 16 rounds for 6 months, just like he wanted his disciples to do, and you're in. Okay, you're in. If anyone can chant 16 rounds for 6 months and follow the regular principles for 6 months, they can be recognized as a Shiksha disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
Okay, without any formal
Formality. Yeah, right.
Well, it's a fact. Read those verses. Next time I come,
Yeah,
I'll give you the
sure,
exact
sure.
verses. There are
Yeah.
verses that explain that you don't need to have a spiritual master to get the benefits of the holy name. The verse itself says it does not require initiation to chant the holy name purely. In fact, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says a fully initiated Vaishnava may be imperfect, but another person may be able to chant the holy name perfectly. So what is that other person? Obviously, an uninitiated person. How's that possible? If they take shelter of Srila Prabhupada, it's all possible. Don't you understand? That's what makes him the world Acharya. Anyone could approach him directly through his Prabhupada Vani. Srila Prabhupada, listen, Srila Prabhupada never went anywhere. He didn't go anywhere. He just changed from Srila Prabhupada Vapu to Srila Prabhupada Vani. And when he was here, there was Srila Prabhupada Vapu and Srila Prabhupada Vani. The GBC's duty was to make the transition from Srila Prabhupada Vapu to Srila Prabhupada Vani for the grieving movement and to preach that. The Srila Prabhupada's still with us in his books, in his lectures, especially his lectures, in his photographs, and his deities. He's still here, and we can bring him to people if we want to do that.
So the main point that you're making in answer to my question, I understand the Vani, but you're also stressing that in the CC, there is a specific instruction or Prabhupada's conveying that you don't actually need the formal initiation.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. I just wanted to
And
clarify.
I'll have it. We don't have time. It's getting late.
Yeah.
To run and get the book and read you the verses. I'll have it ready next time.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah.
And what would you respond, Rupanuga Prabhu, to one who would say, one must have a living guru because you have to have your, Prabhupada himself said, you need to have someone there to pull your ear. That's why you need to have a
That's
guru.
right. And Srila Prabhupada was living in his lectures.
So hearing Prabhupada's lectures is like having your ear pulled.
Listen, I can guarantee you, I sat in front of Srila Prabhupada in that storefront for at least a year, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for Gita class, and every morning for Bhagavatam. And I can sit in front of my CD player, close my eyes, and there's no difference whatsoever.
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna.
That sound vibration is non-different than when I listen to Srila Prabhupada in person in that storefront. If I close my eyes in front of my CD, I'm as good as in that storefront.
Sure.
Nice.
Matagandhari, you had a point? You have your hand up?
Yes, actually, what Jivan Mukta Prabhu brought up, that is such a valid point that there actually, he may not even know that there are 4 generations of Indians are under MK Ultra. You may want to look up what happened. It's not just by chance. This is purposely done, MK Ultra, by the cabal to dumb down the Indian culture and religion. 4 generations. They all want them to become westernized. So even in Mayapur, when these people come, they are in Nike shoes and jeans and all this, whereas Western devotees are in dhoti, kurta, and tilak. So yes, it's absolutely true. How can you depend on these Indians to promote, which Prabhupada personally gave to the Western hippies? And so they're still around on the planet. So if they put their heads together and come up with some plan to spread this, that would work, because you cannot depend on Indians, like Mataji said. They don't even know how to greet a Westerner, So that's one point.
Well, look, they haven't been trained to do it. I'm not saying it's not that they can't do it. It's skin deep. Krishna consciousness is skin deep. It's right there beneath the skin. It's 50% in their heritage. They can be trained, but they're not being trained. That's the point. They're not being
They
trained.
can bring their own people. They're bringing their own. Bring Prabhu,
Yeah.
Prabhu Datta Des. So they're preaching. They're bringing. So how much more can you expect them? It's the Westerners who need to bring the Western people.
No,
That's one
I'm sorry. Excuse me for interrupting. They're working with Western Caucasian people all the time. They can bring some of the people from work.
Why you? Because there are certain cultural nuances that doesn't go beyond their lifestyle. I'm telling you, why can't the Western people bring their own? I gave you the example of Africans bringing Africans, Alaskan, Tasmania. You bring Prabhu Tata Des, preach in your own days, bring more people like Russians. That's
Good
one point. The second point I really wanted to bring this up is Rupanuga Prabhu brought up that point of cultural revolution. It's happening. Jai Pataka Maharaj has disciples all over the world, more than 50,000. And guess what? They're all following this Namahata program. It's going so amazingly well. And they have a congregation ministry where they're catering to every center around the world in the homes. So this is like right in front of our eyes, which we haven't even looked. So these are Namahata programs happening all over the world through his personal inspiration. And it's amazing how he knows each one personally. He knows his disciple. It's amazing, beyond our concept. Anyway, I just want to share this. Namahata is the one which is the revolution. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Namahata is what.
Namahata was introduced by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He opened 400 Namahatas in India. And Namahat was not simply limited to a person's home. It was a village affair. When they had festivals, people would come out of their homes. They had the culture. They had the background. I'm not talking about a Namahat program. I'm talking about a different kind of a program where people may not be just joining in at festivals and coming out with other people out of their houses and having congregational kirtans. I'm talking about planting the roots, which is
They're called Bhakti Vriksha. They also have Bhakti Vriksha. That's what's called. So there's Bhakti Vriksha going on.
That's basically Namahata, Bhakti Vriksha, Namahata. These are interchangeable terms. I know myself, I asked locally in the Toronto area, where are these Bhakti Vriksha programs? I heard there were many going on, but I was told, no, there's nothing going on. So it's hard to know. I have a final question for Rupanuga Prabhu, and that is, we were reading about Sudakshina tonight, utilizing the black arts, black magic, tantra, in order to cast a spell on Krishna to try to kill him. And I've heard some godbrothers say that they'd like to share some things that are important for others to hear about Srila Prabhupada, different aspects. But they're afraid that if they do that, they will have a black magic spell cast upon them by other godbrothers to kill them. So I'm just wondering, if a Vaishnav wants to speak some truth, but they're fearful that someone may utilize some black magic based on tantric whatever, would Krishna not protect them? I know I was in Vrindavan and I was asking some questions about a guru, and this godbrother said, don't quote me, because this guru also has some gundas as his disciples and they could actually come and kill me. So there seems to be an element of fear even within the Vaishnav community regarding the black arts.
Yes, that's been verified. The ISKCON in India does practice tantric, and they practice. In fact, in parts of India are historically quite adept at that, including Bengal. So yeah, this is big. Why though set oneself up as a target because one's criticized and get the tantrics thrown at them? This has happened. This has happened. So why do that? Why? Because we're in the box. We're in the ISKCON box that we have to react to ISKCON. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about preaching to people outside of ISKCON. not
Mhm.
trying to reform ISKCON,
Yeah.
not trying to criticize a guru, not trying to criticize a standard in some temple, but forgetting all that
Yeah.
and just aim our consciousness, our focus the same way Srila Prabhupada did. Focus it on the people
Yeah.
and not worry about what's happening with ISKCON or what's happening with the change of standards or the book revisions.
That's
Just-
all a big distraction. That's all a big distraction.
It's a distraction from the preaching, and the Rakshasas love it because we're the only people who can bring out Krishna consciousness from the heart of people. But Srila Prabhupada told me in his room in Mayapur, he said, when I asked him, Srila Prabhupada, we've read in the past, me and Balavanta have read in the past a big book, Nungir called A Conspiracy, which it says that the world is being run by a very clan of wealthy people who are very high born and they have so much power and they're really manipulating everything, Srila Prabhupada. Are these the Rakshasas you're talking about in Rajavidya, King of Education, and in Bhagavatam? Are these the, yes. So what do we do? How do we deal with them, Srila Prabhupada? How do we deal with them? Preach to them. Then we're thinking, well, how are we going to preach to these rocks? I mean, he could see that we were bewildered. So he said, anyway, the power's in the people. Now, what's he talking about? The power to put somebody in the presidency and then put somebody else in? Is he talking about political power of resistance? That's true. We saw them doing it. But the real power in the people is their dormant Krishna consciousness.
Mhm.
And we're the only people on this planet who know how to elicit that.
Yay.
Awesome.
Right? So therefore, we're the only hope. They can protest. What are they protesting? They're protesting and the limitations, the lockdowns, the limitations on their sense gratification.
Right.
Okay? That's all right. They have the right to protest. They have the right to protest. But I have read to you the other day what Srila Prabhupada says, in the present day also, people all over the world may join together in the Krishna consciousness movement and protest against the present degraded governments of the world's godless societies, which are based on all kinds of sinful activities. Srimad Bhagavatam states that in the age of Kali, thieves, rogues, and fourth-class people who have neither education nor culture capture the seats of governments to exploit the citizens. Are we going to teach revolution? No, we're going to give them Krishna consciousness.
Right.
In India, what happened? They left Krishna for the politicians. They stopped at the 50% level. And we're starting with zero, but we just give them direct. Srila Prabhupada, here it is. We can read this to them. Don't mind it. We're not going to be controlled by these people. We're protected by Krishna, and we'll tell the truth. But we don't have to get on internet and preach and get kicked off Facebook, or get on their assassination list. We just have to preach to the people the way Srila Prabhupada preached to us.
Jai. But Sant Prabhu, you had a point, your hands raised.
Just a quick point. I have really, really enjoyed this evening's session very, very much. I thank you very much for inviting me to this Sangha. I have to take off and do some other things at this moment. And I hope to visit with you again.
Friday, Nectar of Instruction, verse 8.
Same time,
Same time.
same channel?
Yeah.
Okay. Go to Hari. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hari
Vasant.
Bol, Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mata Gandhari, did you have your hand up again for another point? Gandhari? Hare Krishna.
No, sorry. Thank you very much for
And
everything.
so,
No.
Nitya Leela, you came a little bit late. Do you have any thoughts or questions from Pakistan for Rupanuga Prabhu? Nitya Leela, are you there? Hare Krishna. Arjuna Prabhu, you're in New Zealand. You've been listening. Been driving around in your truck? Hard to tell. Anything else from you?
I'm just at work. I've got lots to say, but can't really
Yeah,
say
go
it.
ahead. Say something, please. All right.
I'm in the middle of work. I can't really talk. Unfortunately. Maybe next time.
Okay. Thanks for listening in. See you Friday. Divija Garanga, anything from you? We haven't heard anything from you.
Just thanks for the discussion. I'm mostly very happy to hear the real message is non-sectarian, and it's so refreshing when it's discussed at that level.
Thank you. Rupa Vilas, any final reflections from you? Comment?
Just very much enjoying the discussion and Rupanuga's points.
I'm feeling empowered by hearing Rupanuga Prabhu's words. I mean, he's repeating what Prabhupada has given us. I'm feeling inspired. Sikarani, any thoughts from you?
No, just a very interesting discussion and really good time having these type of discussions.
Yeah, don't misunderstand Rupanuga Prabhu. If I may speak on his behalf for a second, when he says, "I'm not in ISKCON, I left ISKCON." No, I believe that Rupanuga is in the real ISKCON. He's not in the ISKCON corporation, centralization, bureaucracy, but the essence of ISKCON, which is to give Srila Prabhupada, he's a member of that.
Yeah.
I think in all this, we're faced with challenges than like a fresh situation, because we have to deal with all these very subtle forms of misunderstanding and getting trapped, like you were saying earlier, Gaura, about the distractions, how everything's so distracting. We have to be careful not to get distracted. It is a war lion. She's got a lot in her arsenal. She doesn't slack it.
Mm-hmm. I get it.
So far, I believe in that direction of arming us and answering the questions and ask questions that we need to ask.
I've felt extremely distracted by what I've seen coming out of ISKCON media the last 2 years, where I'm seeing my godbrothers advocating taking dangerous injections. And I just like to add that to what Rupanuga Prabhu was saying. People they're protesting their sense gratification, yes, but they're also protesting their human lives, because their lives are being endangered by being asked to take dangerous experimental drugs into their bodies, and they don't want to be. They're being told, you can't work unless you agree to be a lab rat and be experimented on, and they're saying no.
The degree to which we absorb ourselves in the distraction in a way that doesn't get at a solution, it can be a problem as well.
Right.
The was saying is like, just preach to the people. Like, there's so many people who haven't. Why stick on the ones that are stubbornly maybe misrepresenting things or whatever? We don't even need to get into that. That's like a tar baby. And
I'd say probably there's never been a better time to preach than now, because the whole world is completely wacko. Everything's upside down. People are freaked out, and they're looking for solace. They're looking for shelter.
The pandemic has helped to divide the atheists and the theists. And we're preach to the theists. We don't go after the atheists. And I believe that Krishna is in everyone's heart. Therefore, if we're available, if we offer some shelter or some knowledge, he will send the saner section to hear from us. But we have to reach out. I think our real problem is we don't know how to reach out. See, so what do we have? What is we have Harinam, we have the books, but we have another thing that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to use. He told me, he said, you must use every means of media available. We are modern Vaishnavas.
Mm-hmm.
So what's available? We have to learn how to use the net to preach in such a way that we don't get shut down. That's really difficult.
Right.
We have to realize how to reach out to the people in their suffering state and understand what they're suffering from, and preach on that level without watering anything down. At the same time, keep from getting penalized and cut off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. the main reason, the main media, the main avenue in our age, in our advancing age, most of us, to reach people is through sitting in our own homes, reaching out into their homes with the internet. So we have to figure out ways how to reach people in their homes and tell them, this is for you in your home, like I'm doing, this is for you. And how Srila Prabhupada's teachings are for you to apply it in your ordinary life.
And that's what we're doing right here. We're using that technology to do just that.
But this is all in-house. This is all pretty much in-house.
Right.
I'm talking about outside, but this is pretty much in-house. But what we're doing now is the way that people learn today. It's the way they get their information and their education. So they're used to it.
It's the way they find even their life partners. There's something about the internet. You're safe in a sense. There's a safety that, and an availability that's not there in the workaday world. It's much different. The access is almost 100% now. I find I meet a lot of people individually. I just make friends. You know, you're on Facebook and suddenly you get friend requests. Well, I mean, a lot of them may not be very deep or anything, but if you actually interact one-on-one, rather than try and do a platform thing and catch so many, just genuinely make friends with somebody that you feel you can interact. Try with a few, and maybe you don't connect. I look at the timeline of people trying to friend with me. It's like, and I try and see, and then I'll start a conversation with them. And then sometimes it doesn't go anywhere. That's fine. Then there's someone else, and I've made many friends. Like I don't even know why they friend requested me in the first place. Of course, sometimes within like what you're saying, in house, it's like devotees. Devotees want to be connected with other devotees, but there's I mean, everyone's on Facebook practically, or the other social media, and everyone's in the human form. We all have the existential problems. We all have the questions: who am I? Why am I suffering? And you just interact with people on a really personal level, even if it's seemingly mundane, but very quickly the opportunities open up. I'm sure when you're there personally with Srila Prabhupada, how he connected with people, just so personally.
So I humbly beg you, Dvija Garanga Prabhu, Mata Gandhari, Nitya Leela, Shuddha Sindhu, Arjuna, Rupa Vilas, to please contact at least one other person to come and join us so we can expand this reading group. A lot of potential here.
See, Facebook was set up originally for a person to say, here I am, here's my family, here's my trip, here's what I'm doing. Yeah, but we want to use Facebook for here you are. Here you are, not me. It's not I am here, here's what I am, who I am, here's my face. Facebook. We want to use whatever there is, whatever social media there is, to preach. Not what I'm doing, or my name and my job and my house and all this other stuff and my own opinions about this or that, but we want to use it. And this requires expertise. But we have that expertise. We have years of it. We have practice of it. We have inspiration from Srila Prabhupada. We have to use that expertise, to use whatever means we have to reach out to people, to convince them to try this at home, to try this for themselves. This is a very personal movement. It's self-realization, real self-realization, and God realization. There are people out there who want to hear what I'm saying, and they can hear it from us because the Lord in the heart will send them. That's how we met Srila Prabhupada, isn't it? He said, the Lord in the heart is there, and when he sees someone's a little serious, a little sincere, he sends them to Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people out there who are so frustrated with the material world. Right now, people are losing their jobs, they're losing their families, they're losing their friends because they don't get a job or a jab or whatever. People are in as much anxiety, if not more so, than when Srila Prabhupada came to America during the Vietnam War.
Mm-hmm.
When people were protesting that.
Yeah.
The anxiety level was huge. And it's even much bigger now, globally.
That's a constant factor. That's like a pressure to.
Remember this. When the Iron Curtain was up, behind the Iron Curtain, the devotees couldn't go in the street. They couldn't even have programs at home because it was illegal. They were behind the Iron Curtain. And what these people are doing, excuse me, these governments are doing, they're putting up a bunch of Iron Curtains. But when that Iron Curtain came down, all the people in those countries, those Iron Curtain countries came out, especially from Russia, and just mobbed Mayapur. So the people are frustrated, but it was the Iron Curtain. We're dealing with Iron Curtains popping up all over the place. They were behind. So people are suffering because the government's setting up these totalitarian Iron Curtains. So that the level of anxiety is bigger than ever. And this planet is called Kunta, the planet of anxiety. And all of this is contributing to people's anxiety increasing. That just makes them better candidates. So all of us, we have a home, we have a player, we have a meet. We're actually having a movie right now. We're actually broadcasting anywhere in the world that we want. People from all over the world are joining in this Zoom. If this was here when Shobhava was here, he would have been zooming all over the planet.
Jai.
So you had to zoom, he had to go on a plane. But if he had this, he could be reaching thousands and thousands of people. So we have to figure out ways how to use what we have and have faith that, oh, we don't know who's watching, we don't know who cares, we don't know, but Krishna knows. And he'll be pleased with us. So I say there's millions of books out there already. And people have been reading them or being around them, and they've been getting purified just by being around them because they're deities. And maybe they're even reading them, and maybe they've had the book for 10 years and just started reading them yesterday. Who knows? We hear these stories all the time. So they're out there, they're waiting for the preachers. And what are we doing? We're arguing in-house. We're in the ISKCON box.
Yeah.
We're talking about what
Yeah.
ISKCON should be. We're talking about what ISKCON was, instead of spreading the Hare Krishna movement. Am I right or wrong?
Totally right. We've been totally duped.
This is the Rakshasas are having a big laugh.
Exactly.
They're chuckling.
Yep.
Just see how much spiritual energy is being wasted. Ha 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 ha. We can't reform ISKCON. Forget it.
Excellent.
We have to give people Srila Prabhupada direct. They don't have to go through anybody to get Srila Prabhupada. We just have to give him to them. And how? We do it this way. We're convinced ourselves, and therefore we can convince others. If we're confident, they will be affected by our confidence. They will be affected by our sincerity. They will be affected by our strength of conviction. That is our weapon. That is our benediction that we have from Srila Prabhupada. We have the power. We have the power in our hearts, in our voices, in our logic and reasoning to convince other people. But we have to reach out to them and stop fighting amongst ourselves and stop trying to renovate everything and hoping against hope. We're dealing with an institution who is deeply in its present state. I've read to you before how the movement is trying to become. I've proved it to you. I read quotes. It's they're trying to become an organized church. That's not our business. We have to get out of the box. We get out of the box. If we find fault with this guy, which is easy, there's nothing wrong with it because its faults are there, then we become simply caught up in the fault finding.
Yeah.
And what we're doing is we're turning our backs to the people.
Yeah.
They're not going to gain anything from our in-house discussions.
It's true. It's just another trick of Maya.
But we have to be careful because I just spoke to a devotee yesterday who went on her own little Facebook or her own whatever she has set up and really was preaching a little too much direct. But the problem was it was all beautiful. The problem was she was talking about herself and her own progress, and to do so she had to be at least superficially critical of the education that she had, which she gets from the politicians, which she gets from this and that. So they cut her off. You're off for a month. You're giving disinformation. So we have to stay away from the politics.
Yeah.
Because they'll use that as an excuse to shut us up.
Oh, yeah.
To censor us. So everybody sitting in their home right now on this Zoom has a computer sitting in front of them. They have to figure out a way to use it. I can't think of anything else to do. We can go out on Harinam and reach a few hundred people, something like that. But we're talking about thousands. If I knew that I was going to give a class at a temple in front of thousands of people, oh, it'd be wonderful. We have that possibility. Whether we know how many people are tuned in or not is not important because the people who should be there will be there by the grace of God. They're there for everything else. The Lord, we have to have faith in the Lord in the heart. Shubhaba says that intelligence is the form direction of the Lord. So we can work with the Lord of the heart to bring them up to the level of intelligence. Just like, for example, what does intelligence mean? How is intelligence is above the mind? Mind is thinking, feeling, and willing. So how is the intelligence above the mind? Suppose I say to somebody, suppose somebody asked you, if somebody walked up to you, asked you, what's the highest truth you know? What would you say? Immediately, they're up on an intellectual platform. Immediately. They got to think about what's the highest truth I know. That's very interesting. So I'm just saying there's ways to preach to people without condemning society, without, Bishop Baba said that. We have nothing against the chemists, but when they say that life came from chemistry, we have an argument with them.
Prabhupada said that even Sarasvati could do perfect preaching. He said little Sarasvati, Shamasundar Malati's little daughter, 3-4 years old, going up to people and she'd say, "Do you know who Krishna is?" And they go, "No." And she'd say, "Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead." And Prabhupada said, "This is perfect preaching."
For her, it was.
Right.
Anyway,
I want to say something.
Yes.
Namahata, actually Namahata is a house program. We try also to do here. Sometimes it's not successful. Maybe, I don't know why. Maybe it's devotees are not working well, those leaders. So sometimes it's not successful. And then we also have a group of Chinese people here, and then from Singapore to preach to the Chinese. And then what I find is that like Rupa Nuga Das Prabhu say, they don't really bring Prabhupada into the preaching. So sometimes when I attend the class, I would say like they want to ask the devotees. Some devotees have been Chinese devotee, all these are Chinese. They have been chanting for 10 years, 20 years, but they don't get the taste. They don't get the taste yet, the taste of chanting. And then they don't really follow the 4 regulative principle. What could be the wrong? And the leader, the one who organized, I don't know what they said, I forgot already. But first thing that come into my mind is, for my own realization, I always say, you have to, because you don't have a guru. So the first guru that you have to take shelter is Srila Prabhupada. I always mention Srila Prabhupada's name because I realize it. Before I take shelter or initiator, I always pray to Srila Prabhupada. It's the Srila Prabhupada that showed me so many things that I want to know. Even at some point, I got so many disagreements with devotees in ISKCON because of this lockdown. So I want to know, I told Srila Prabhupada, I want to know your senior disciple in the Western country who have the same like-minded like me, who can actually apply what is written down in the Srimad Bhagavatam, like this world is actually controlled by the Raksasa Asura, is written in the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Right, many verses. And then how come the senior devotees here, they don't believe it? They follow blindly what the government said. They don't believe that the world is controlled by Raksasa Asura. So I cannot find any same like-minded devotees here before I got initiated. So I pray very hard to Srila Prabhupada. I want to know more your senior disciple in the Western country, Western disciple who will have the same like-minded like me. And so I came to know Gaura Das and some other senior disciple, some other devotees through Facebook. So from here, I realized that Srila Prabhupada, he really reciprocated with me. He really answered my prayer. Mm-hmm. And then I asked him to show me guru that suits me before I come. I already know our association here. And then he shows me the guru. Then, okay, I just take initiation from that guru. And then when it comes to the Chinese preaching, because they really want to preach very hard to the Chinese, it's very hard to preach to the Chinese in Malaysia here. And then what I find is that their preaching, they never mention about Srila Prabhupada. So if a new person coming in, for me, you should tell that person, take shelter with Srila Prabhupada. When I first go to ISKCON temple, nobody told me. I just see Srila Prabhupada. I was thinking, who is this person? And then why so many people bow to him? And then why must I bow to him? You're not God. God is there. Sri Krishna, Radha, something like that. All the why must bow to this person? Is not God. I was just thinking only. I never really asked what to do. And then somehow, after some time, somebody bring me a Chinese devotee. He gave me a set of CD, Abhaya Charan. Abhaya Charan is Srila Prabhupada, right?
Yeah.
So from that, I watched with my 2 children. I watched the whole CD. I was very touched. Oh, so this is Srila Prabhupada. So like I say, sometimes you don't have to really ask. It's just like by thinking, the things will come to you. The answer will come to you. So that's the power. That's the power of Srila Prabhupada. That's my realization. But in the Chinese preaching, they don't bring out Srila Prabhupada. They never mention Srila Prabhupada. I think they have to. I'm not saying that I'm wrong. I was just thinking my own realization. For newcomer, you have to ask them to take shelter with Srila Prabhupada. It's very powerful personality, Srila Prabhupada, but they never bring out Srila Prabhupada. And that's why I see some, they have been chanting 10 years, more than 10 years, and still eat meat. And I say, if you eat meat, you cannot have a pure consciousness. So how to get the taste of chanting? And then there's 1 or 2 senior devotees. They say, oh, never mind, you can still eat meat. You keep on chanting, you still eat meat. You take meat and then you get purified. I think this is a wrong preaching. How come you get purified? And when you still eat meat, when you don't have the urge to follow the 4 regular principles, then how are you going to get the taste of chanting and upgrade yourself to the next level? Am I correct or wrong? No, that's my own realization, but I never say it to them. That's all. So what I heard from Rupanuga Das Prabhu say today, so I feel more energetic and powerful. Don't
Wonderful.
worry, speak out about Srila Prabhupada. You just speak out. Just tell
Jai.
everybody, Srila Prabhupada, the first karma come when you don't have any guru. Srila Prabhupada is your first guru. You must take shelter with him and give and get blessing and mercy from Srila Prabhupada. That's my realization.
And thank you so much. But I want to say to Rupanuga, if some devotees hear Shuddha Sindhu speaking as enthusiastic as she does, you have to accept Prabhupada. Some devotees will say, oh, you're a Ritvik. You're one of those Ritviks. You know what I'm saying? That goes on.
Ritvik is different philosophy.
But she's talking about, she's talking not about preaching to devotees. She's talking about preaching to people, to get them to understand Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Factual, this is a fact. I'm going to give you a fact, whether you believe it or not. Nobody on this planet can get to Krishna without Srila Prabhupada. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. If you want to go to Vaikuntha, you can practice the regular principles perfectly and worship Narayana, Narayan, Supreme Personality of God, and you may go to Vaikuntha. But if you want to go to Krishna Lok, where Srila Prabhupada is always preaching about, you're going to have to go through him. It's not just a question of regular principles. It's a question of surrendering to Srila Prabhupada, because that's what Krishna wants. Love me, love my dog. He wants to see us serving Srila Prabhupada more than he wants to be served himself. He puts the pure devotee above himself. When Shiva was telling his good wife Parvati, who asked to know who is the one do we worship, well, Brahma or you or Ganesh or whatever, he said, according to Shastra, Vishnu. But above Vishnu, he said, is to worship his pure devotee.
That's what I'm trying to say. If when they bring in newcomer, they have to introduce Srila Prabhupada to them and take shelter and get blessing from Srila Prabhupada. But they don't do it. That's why they said they've been chanting 10 years, but they don't get the taste because you don't get the blessing from Srila Prabhupada. But I didn't say out because I'm just nobody. I'm just a neophyte. They're all senior, 20 years, 30 years. So I'm just keep quiet lah. But because we are here, open discussion, I can discuss with you. But they're all Chinese people, they're different thinking one. So I don't dare to bring it out.
I'm feeling my point not being understood. Because I know of another Mataji, her name is Radhika, and I think she's also in Malaysia. And she told me how much she loves preaching to people about Srila Prabhupada. You have to accept Srila Prabhupada to the newcomers, not to in-house. And some devotees accuse her, oh, you're Ritvik. Why you're not preaching for Jaipataka Swami? Why you're not preaching for Indradumna Swami? Why are you just preaching Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Prabhupada? Some people will be called a Ritvik for that. It's true.
No, I told them my own realization is you must have blessing and mercy from Srila Prabhupada first. That only the next thing coming.
I agree with you.
That's what written in the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yes, I agree, but I'm just trying to share with Rupanuga Prabhu that this is also a phenomena I've seen in our movement, where if a devotee enthusiastically promotes one-pointed attention to Prabhupada, oh, you're one of those Ritviks.
I've been called a Ritvik for years.
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care, because I'm not preaching to the Ritviks. I gave up on it a long time ago. I told them, I said, Srila Prabhupada's not the Acharya of Ritvikism. You claim he started it? That's what I don't like about you. You do whatever you like, but don't blame Srila Prabhupada. Don't put it on him as the originator, the founder of Ritvikism, which they claim. Actually, the founder of Ritvikism is Yasodanandana.
Or Nityananda. Or Nityananda Das.
Not Srila Prabhupada. So we have to ignore the critics. There are always going to be critics. Whether they're God brothers, Srila Prabhupada wrote one devotee, my God brothers, they depressed, oppressed, suppressed, repressed, everything to me, but I went on serving my Guru Maharaj. I have the letter. So we may be criticized, we may be, who cares? We don't care about the organized church. We care about Srila Prabhupada's books and what's in those books. We care about the absolute truth and presenting it in a convincing way. We don't, and if we're really good, we convince a person that they don't need to have a pre-certified guru. They're all pre-certified. That takes the onus away from the individual, that they don't have to make a decision. It's already there. These gurus are all okay.
Well, I think they still encourage them to take a year to study their guru, and their gurus study them also.
Yeah, will they really do it or not? And the way you do that is you compare with Srila Prabhupada's books. You see, you have to have a standard of comparison. They don't know anything. People have to read the books to understand what it means to be a spiritual master. Not that everybody's expecting Uttama Adhikaris. Where's the Uttama Adhikari? But there's plenty of Madhyama Adhikaris. Madhyama Adhikari continuum is from a wide continuum, from initial Madhyama to a more advanced Madhyama Adhikari. But anyway, what's coming across is that Srila Prabhupada is the introduction to Krishna consciousness. It cannot be avoided. The sooner the better he's presented as the bona fide, pure representative of Krishna in his books, explain everything about Krishna. As soon as that point is made, then we take off. That's square one. Square one is you don't have to go through me to understand Krishna or somebody else to understand Krishna or understand Srila Prabhupada. You can understand him directly. He wrote these books for you as a person. In the book, the distributor gave you a book, he gave it to you, a person. And you took it home, to your personal house, and put it on the shelf, your shelf, in your home. This movement is for you. And in the end, it's a solo flight for all of us. We have the instructor, he takes us up, fly, show us how to start a stalled engine. But when it comes down to the point of death, it's a solo flight. That Srila Prabhupada gave us that example. You won't have the instructor. If you were good instructed well, and you've learned, you'll fly. But you have to do it solo. So ultimately, it's up to the individual. Therefore, the sooner, the better we get them to understand that Krishna consciousness is an individual experience. One devotee said to me, when I'm on Harinam, I really absorbed in the holy name with all the devotees. But when I'm home, my japas, I can't get into the chanting the holy name. But that's important, and people can understand that. This is bhakti yoga. You got to be a bhakti yogi. You got to chant and try to avoid those 10 offenses. That's japa, not Harinam. Harinam, you're avoiding the 10 offenses, but japa, you got to live in the material world and avoid the 10 offenses. Anyway, this is all detail. It's a question of understanding what our mission is. We, as disciples of Srila Prabhupada, we are obliged to him, to his divine grace, to spread his teachings, unadulterated, to anyone who will be at all listening, and avoid the atheists. Just avoid the atheists. We don't have to bother with the atheists. But we want the innocent. And amongst the innocent, there are people, plenty of people. There's Krishna, there's a devotee, then there's the innocent, and there's the atheist. So the non-devotee is divided up into two categories, atheists and non-devotees. Right? We're after the non-devotees. That's our job.
Hare Krishna. Okay, I need to go.
Me too.
Thank you for bringing up that point, Shuddha Sindhu. Thank you. Maybe you can make that difference in your temple. All new people who come, you can introduce them to Srila Prabhupada and start them off in the right way.
Okay, so I need to go. start cooking.
Yeah, we all do. It's 10:30 p.m. here on the East Coast. Thanks so much, Rupanuga Prabhu, for vitalizing all of us, and so happy that my dear god brother Rupa Vilas Prabhu could come here. He arranged for me first. He was the first person to arrange for me to go to India, and there I met Srila Prabhupada. I was there, going there for my Brahminical initiation, so he arranged for that for me. Thanks for coming, Arjuna from New Zealand, Vijay Garanga from Vancouver, Shuddha Sindhu from Malaysia, and Mata Gandhari. Where are you exactly? Are you in India or are you in North America? Where are you? Are you there?
I think
Yeah.
everyone's gone. I think everyone's
Okay.
gone.
Yeah. So Friday night, Friday evening, Nectar of Instruction, verse number 8 by Srila Rupa Goswami. So if you'll bless me, I look forward to everyone's association, please. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai
Lord
Prabhupada.
Pramanandi Hari Hari Vo. See you soon. Krishna willing.